So the idea was basically I was working at MUSC in Charleston,
Yeah.
and the chief and I both wanted to talk about medicine, wanted to talk about Parkinson's, talk about stroke, and interview some of the attendings,
Right.
um, raise awareness for stroke. Charleston has like a huge problem with chronic medical illness and like
Really?
diabetes, high blood pressure, and stroke.
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's the stroke belt. So like all of the South, Mississippi, like Missouri, like
Wow. I never
Louisiana.
I never knew that.
There's like a huge problem with unrecognized. People walk around with blood pressures of 190, 200. We would go to the baseball. They have like a minor league baseball game. We would go and take people's blood pressures. They had no idea they were sitting in the 190s. It's just lack of access to
Wow.
medical care. So trying to raise awareness and things like that. And the idea was to put it out. But I finally did it, and I'm really glad I did because I just stopped listening to music. I was a DJ for a decade plus.
Right.
And in
DJ tips.
B-tips, yeah.
B-tips.
Yeah.
B-tips. This is really cool though. So you had this idea and
Yeah.
you just like
Yeah, I
brought-
manifested it. I bought all the equipment. I just like got a credit card and bought the gear and made it happen. And now
it's fascinating.
there's too many interesting people in Pittsburgh while I'm living here and anywhere I live in the world where I should be having these conversations recorded. And and I'm learning so much from it. I'm learning about the way I speak. I'm learning about my vocal patterns. I use multiple phrases that I hate, like, I say, a million times an episode.
Dude, that's
say,
like
a
as a
million
yoga
times an episode.
teacher, like that's what we learn that about ourselves too.
Because of Zoom, right?
Of Zoom, but also just like you'll hear it in another teacher's class and then you'll go teach and you'll hear it in yourself and you'll be like, oh my God, I just heard myself do that.
That's why you have to take other teachers' classes. One of the reasons.
Yeah, that's
right?
one of the you constantly have to do that, I guess. I mean,
Are there people in Pittsburgh that you go to?
I usually just take class at my own studio because I'm just supporting the community that I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any rule that you have to, like, I think you just do what feels right. It's kind of what I've always done. I'm just like so involved in it that that's where I'm at. If I have any free time, I'm going to go to take a class with one of the teachers.
Who helps you run the business? There's two studios, right?
Yeah, I run it with I basically I have a great partner and he has always been pretty supportive of me. He doesn't work there, so to speak, but there's a lot of like you have to have somebody that's willing to like I mean, it's just like grunt work, like carrying shit back and forth. When shit goes wrong, like, oh my God, this fell. Like, can you help me like get up on a ladder and do this? Like, that's what a small business owner is doing. Like, this broke, this fell, there's a problem, this is out, this isn't working, something's not working with the internet. Like, it's, like it's just like a house, but like that.
But two of them.
East
and Liberty and
Strip District. Yeah.
The Strip is a really great area.
Have you been to both of the spaces or just one?
No, I think I've been to both.
You've been to both studios?
Yeah, the one in the Strip is the one where there's that really interesting business next to it, and you have to take off you don't have shoes on, and you're walking in the halls to go to the bathroom, and then there's the.
Yeah, you should put your shoes on if you're going out in the hall.
I'm at the age where I have at least one pee break per yoga class.
Really?
About one.
So the East Liberty studio has the bathrooms in the studio.
Right. That's the
and yeah, okay, so here's like business owner brain. When they're in the studio, you have to take care of them yourself and like clean them and like put toilet paper and paper towels and keep them all like you're basically when they're in the space. When they're out of the space, then you're paying for somebody to do that because you're going to pay common area maintenance fees.
But you're paying
in the building. So it's either or. Like you're still paying for the supplies and you'd have to clean it and pay for somebody to clean it. So you're doing that, but then you don't have to worry about it. So it's one I mean, you're paying the same price either way. The one is that you actually have to have your hands in it, and the other one you're just making a payment.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
logistics of bathroom management of small business owners.
There's that really cool. No, this is actually what I want to talk about. There's a really cool other business in the Strip that's something about going back to your birth experience, and you you become an egg. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
The harmonic egg?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What's up
have
with
done
that?
it.
Really?
Yeah, I bought a whole package and did it.
Oh, that's cool.
I loved it. In fact, I was going through something and I kept being drawn to the egg because I just put the business there. I met everybody in the building and it's I mean, how can you not? Like I put a business next to a thing that has like a virtual spaceship in the room next to me and they're saying I can go in there and feel great. I'm like, okay, how much does this cost and what's it like? The only thing I was slightly worried about was claustrophobia because that's weirdly crept up on me as I've gotten older,
Whoa.
like weirdly so, where I like actually forethink like, oh, I don't know, that space might not work. So that was one thing, but I realized it's as big as a car and they'll even leave it a crack, like if you would crack a window in a car or something, and like you do not feel closed in.
Suze, what are you talking about? This is the experience? Like,
The
explain
egg.
to me, what is it?
Oh, you go in it. Are you
Go in what? I mean,
like an egg, like a spaceship egg? Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
no, I mean, I have an idea that there's an experience that they'll provide you, but I don't know what the experience
Okay,
is.
did you
So is
not
it a
see
floating
it?
tank? Is it
No, did you not see it?
not really?
Okay, did you see the picture of it outside?
It's
It
like a
looks
tiny
like
little
a
bed.
big uh egg like an egg shaped
Yep.
like if a kid had a playhouse,
So,
an egg
oh,
playhouse.
cool. Okay.
Okay.
Is it like going back into the womb? That's the idea.
I mean,
You're kind of like
the way
transporting
that I did it was like
to your birth experience.
I guess so, and
Yeah.
also that it's a sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
So for me, they delved into the chakras and like talked to you a little bit before to get a sense of things and then like what you want to focus on when you're in there, and just by what you say to them
Yeah.
they will um put on a color
Yep.
and a music track.
Oh, cool.
And based on like what you were going with when you were just like blah 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 talking to them. And so then you go in and you're in for 50 minutes with the music on and 10 minutes of silence at the end.
That sounds really cool. Yeah.
And you just lay there, you're in an actual chair that tips back and like you're totally supported and they put blankets on you.
I love it. It's like
So
yoga
you're
nidra.
yeah, it's just like this really
So cool.
cool light music experience. You feel cozy and you drift and it's supposed to like whatever music they're playing is supposed to go into your brain and like do something to you.
How'd you become a yoga teacher?
I took training.
It was on the West Coast. You have a teacher out
Oh
west,
no,
right?
I actually initially took training right here in Pittsburgh. My because there's levels of training that you do. My initial first training was here in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
The first 200 hour.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. At a studio right in well, they have a lot of studios actually. I took my teacher training at Yoga Flow. Do you know Yoga Flow?
No.
Yeah. So there's it's a pretty big yoga studio in Pittsburgh. It has 5 locations. Yeah.
How did you know you wanted to do it? You were already just practicing a lot,
I
and
actually right up here by you guys here in Dormont is South Hills Power Yoga.
yep.
And when I was living in the South Hills, I was married, I had my kids, and it kind of had just opened. Coincidentally, my husband at the time, um, well, still is, but was at the time that I was married to him and still is, the drama teacher at Bethel Park High School.
Whoa.
And so one of his students, well, not current students, but graduated students that he had worked with in the theater in high school, opened that yoga studio.
Wow.
And so that was kind of cool. And she was just always a really, he really liked her as a student and like everything she had brought to the table as like a theater student. So he was excited for her. And I guess I was just like, I don't know how it comes about in anything, but I had always been doing yoga. This was the first time I'd ever gone to like a yoga studio though, because the yoga that I did, I started doing yoga in my 20s when I was in television news producing and I got really stressed with my hours and I was young and I wasn't eating well and kind of just like partying hard, working weird hours, living that kind of life. And it took its toll on my body and my mental state. I was anxious and I developed an anxiety disorder. And so, you're going to therapy, and I had a really cool therapist at the time, since retired, but she um told me about yoga. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And she like said, "Look it up." Well, you look it up in the Yellow Pages. It was one in Squirrel Hill that was looked really cool. It was a little community center, like second floor thing, little small room, very carpeted. We went in. My teacher was like older. It was really cool. My legs up the wall.
Is that
Felt
the spot that's above the library? Because there's a really cool teacher there. Actually, one of my mom's yoga teachers, who's in her 80s
Oh my
now.
God, that's probably her.
Yeah, she's
Her
incredible.
name's
I'm
I don't know if it's the
so
same
mad I
person,
don't
but
remember her
Gay
name.
Galza was her name.
Oh, no, 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 different.
Okay.
That's cool though. I'm sure
But it
there's a
was a
lot of really
similar, yeah. And
amazing.
so I was the youngest person in the room at the time. There was no, you didn't, so like, you just read about it. It told you to go there. You went there at the time. You just showed up. There's no signups. There was no websites. There was no internet. There was no, like, I mean, there was dial up maybe. Like, there was nothing. So you just went, and then you paid a check to like take it for 6 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever. And if you went, you went. If you didn't, you didn't. They got their money up front. And it was always like Tuesday at this time, once a week, like that kind of thing. So I did that and I loved it. Then I eventually, when I got married and got pregnant and all that stuff, I went into the prenatal thing and I loved that. I went to like this woman conducted yoga out of her dining room in Edgewood. So when she would have her, you know, yoga classes, like you came in and her like husband and kids would be there, and she would have the dining room was this gorgeous old Victorian house, and the dining room was large with large ceilings, but they would push the table away, and then we would sit in a circle and we would do our prenatal yoga, and I loved that. And then I had my son, and he was just young, like maybe, so I kept doing that. And as I was some point when he was a kid was when the studio yoga started happening. And I got wind of the new studio that opened in town. And I thought, oh, I'll do that because I like that stuff. I do yoga. This would be cool. I saw the word and I went and I started doing it all the time. And I
What
did it
what
with my
year what
friends.
year is this? Not to date you too much, but
Well, there's no getting around it. So this would be 2004.
okay. Blog era.
Yeah, so yeah, because my son was born in 99, so I think it's about 4 or 5 years later so I'm still in that realm of like going to the community centers. In fact, so much so that even like in Edgewood, they had, or no, not Edgewood, Regent Square. They had a community center there, kind of like where the old, sort of across the street and down from where the old Regent Square Cafe was. And that was where we started going to yoga there too, with this one group that I was attending. That's the first time like I meditated, like anything like that. It was really cool.
You have a meditation practice?
No, 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 I do not anymore. No, I do not. My meditation practice consists of every single time that I have free time for myself, I fill it up with more stuff that I probably, just making more work for
How old's
myself.
your son now?
My son
I guess I
is
could probably do the math.
24.
Yeah. So
He's
he's out of the house, doing his own thing.
My son lives in Boston.
Yeah.
He is a coder guy,
Cool. Yeah.
software
Yeah.
coding.
Yeah.
He makes code. He did computer science in Boston. He works for a cybersecurity company. They make
Awesome.
they make codes to sell a product to e-commerce to make sure like when I go in to buy something, everything with the credit cards, like the safety.
Yep.
It's actually a pretty important thing because it's pretty valuable right now. Because like that's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
My buddy, one of my best friends, Danny Longarms, is a coder in New York.
Okay.
It was his birthday yesterday. I was just on the phone with him.
Oh, happy birthday, Danny.
Yeah. Shout out Longarms. So,
Shut up. Gross.
um,
So that's cool. So that's what he
yeah.
does. He's also, though, I do fear sometimes that kind of job, like he's very sedentary.
Mm.
I mean, he's naturally he was a hockey player when he was a kid. He was naturally a soccer player, hockey player. Like he naturally did that. It was always naturally like muscular and athletic, but like he's also, now he climbs. So that's
Oh,
what he
cool.
likes. He likes climbing. He doesn't do yoga. Doesn't do
That's
yoga.
okay.
No,
You know,
yeah, he
it,
could care less about it. He's tried it many times. It's not for him. I think probably what turned him off was initially when I had him try it. Yeah, I was teaching at a hot yoga studio,
Yep.
and he absolutely was like, "This is the absolute worst."
You know what the issue has
He was too young.
been for me lately?
What?
The yoga to me, it feels like a very feminine space. Like a
Oh,
space
really?
for women to
Women
be,
empowerment kind
yeah,
of.
for them to like have their own thing.
Really?
It was huge on my retreat. I just got back from Tulum and I was the only guy
Oh,
there.
well, that of course. What
I
are you
was,
talking
well,
about?
I
That
didn't
was like,
know. I didn't know.
you went on a Tulum retreat for yoga and you thought it was good. There was gonna be dudes.
Well, yeah, I
Hmm.
guess.
Okay. All right, Isaac.
I didn't know the drill.
All right, DJBT.
I'm learning.
This is
I should have asked you. Is it not going to
no.
stable?
That would definitely be. I would not imagine that to be a very masculine experience. No.
No, it actually turned out to be perfect because Brian Peoples was there. He's now my favorite yoga teacher.
Oh,
Francesca
okay.
was great, but there was a guy also, and I did a private with him, and he changed my life.
Oh,
He
fantastic. I
he
don't know who that is,
put
but
me in wheel and sat on me for an hour.
oh,
It
that's
was
fun.
sick. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I was just
Fantastic.
weeping. I was weeping for like 20 minutes straight. Sick.
You didn't get into wheel before?
Not with a 200-pound man on
Oh,
my
sitting
body,
on you in wheel.
standing basically. Yeah, with his knees
Oh,
on my
okay. I don't
thighs,
know about that. That seems like a
on my
torture
hamstrings.
thing.
It was
I don't think
incredible.
that's my yoga.
I didn't think it was either.
No.
I learned.
Well, that's the thing though, is that, there's all different kinds. All different kinds. From all from I think back to the yoga that I did when I was younger comparatively to what I do now and all the different phases. Because that's another thing too, is I think people go through different phases of what they like for their practice. And just because you're in one phase, I look at some people's phases. Like, I remember when I was in a very, very different phase than I'm in now, and I would look at people that are in the phase I'm in now and be like, "Oh, they're not that's a different phase. Like, that's different, what they like doing. I wonder if I'll ever like that," or
What are
whatever.
they?
Um, like, I used to be really, 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 really into arm balancing, and in fact, I have an arm balancing workshop this
Ooh, exciting.
Saturday. And I think it was something that I really enjoyed learning the technique of that and practicing it. I had so much fun with it. It was like, I don't know, almost like a creative skill, if you will, like learning it and putting because like, yes, it's strength wise, but there's this creativity involved in understanding how to move your body in that way and hold yourself. It felt really masterful. I really liked it. And the way probably my headspace at the time, like where I was in my life, like, I needed to feel that way. Now I find it to be exhausting.
You still demo them in class?
Yeah,
I
I do
remember.
them.
Yeah.
No, I do them. I mean, I do them because I think there's still a need to like, I don't, they're not totally out of my system, but it's also like, I do think like, um, it's an art and a skill and that that not all teachers know how to do them and a lot of people want to learn a little bit of them, and so if you have that skill it's nice to share it while you want to still. I don't think it will be, if you don't have any interest in sharing it, that's, I'm not saying you should, but I feel like sometimes I still have an interest in sharing it. I'm not completely out of not sharing it yet. That's why but the last time I did an arm balance workshop was a year ago. So
Wow.
I used to do them so frequently and now like I do them like once a year. And I just had people like be like, "Oh, this one girl said the other day, she's like, I can't believe it. I have a something to do on the day and you're doing it. So I'm gonna catch you on the next one." And I was like, "Okay, bye
Good
next
luck.
year."
Yeah, good luck.
Or this might be her last one. Like this
Yeah.
might be my last celebration tour.
Well, you're not going anywhere, Suze.
You're
So maybe
not
using the
going anywhere.
maybe using the Ayurvedic language, the practice has shifted from more of a rajas to more
Oh,
of
I
like
like
a
that. I like
pitta, or like more of like a calm. Like you don't have to show off for anybody anymore. Maybe.
yeah, maybe that's it. I didn't think of it that way. Maybe I don't, and maybe like Yeah, I think there's numerous things that have gone on with me. Just like kind of sometimes as a student, there was a time when I was a student and that's all I wanted to learn. I got excited when that part of the class would come about. I'd be in my teacher's classes and they would do something. I'd be like, I'd be really into that. And now as a student, I'm really, really into the beginning parts of class. I like moving slower in the beginning. I like building into flow, but I'm less concerned with peak poses. I'm less concerned with that. I'm more into like, um, getting my body like a release, a movement release, if you will, by like feeling energy moving with the breath. I like some holds just enough to get a little deep enough to really give myself a stretch, but I do like to move a lot back and forth. I don't want it to be like a boot campy workout. This is my personal practice I'm talking
Yeah.
about. But that
Yeah,
does
yeah.
inform sometimes how I teach, is what I'm saying. Like how where I was in my headspace.
I've
I just recently started this new thing, sculpt. I'm really into these isometric movements, but I like both flow and that style of yoga. And I love putting these things on my legs and doing like repetitious movements, but combining that with yoga style
kinda
movements.
like a Pilates vibe.
It's very much a mashup of Pilates and yoga in a way for sure, and it creates a different strength in the body. I also feel like I don't like as a person, maybe that's why I shift sometimes. I don't like to plateau. I start to get interested in other things.
Yeah. Well, but that could also be part of the challenge, like in a yin class and you're stuck somewhere and you have to find a way to get through it, sort of
Yeah, yeah.
change your mind
Yeah.
to
I'm not that much into the idea of yoga being this like I think I've taught this many times to people, and sometimes now I'm starting to question this idea of yoga meaning that you have to be uncomfortable to get uncomfortable and that kind of stuff. That was a lot of lingo that I think I've spewed and a lot of teachers have spewed. And it's not to say that I don't find any relevance in it. I do, but I'm starting to think that the shape of my practice now is in learning what feels good.
Yeah, I think the way that James and Judy said it, the teachers that I did my training with, was something like find your edge, like this
Mhm.
whole like knife's edge idea. And
Yeah,
I
what do you think of that? I mean, I've said that. I've taught it. I've been
yeah,
taught that and I've taught it. Like the lineage that you're speaking of, like your teacher's telling you that and then you kind of pull that in and I did the same and then I actually running a yoga school. I mean, over the years that I've trained people, I mean, I'm things are coming down to me through people and then I'm bringing those out and infusing some of it in terms of what my own personal way that I am in those moments and then it's kind of filtering down and I guess what I'm saying is that I don't feel anymore so much where that like I'll say that cuz I've said it for a while and I'm wondering if that's really how I feel.
I think it can go too far. So the example I would give is something like when I was in my 200 hour, one of those two people, I won't say which one, put me in a pose that was dangerous. Like it was, um,
Dangerous how?
leg behind my head.
Dangerous how though? Like you could stretch the muscle? Like
my
what's the danger?
my hip was not open enough to tolerate
Okay, so what
my
was going to
leg behind
happen
my
to
head.
you?
I could dislocate my hip.
Yeah, could you dislocate your hip if you fell down the stairs?
It, no, probably not. You could probably break
Mm.
it, but
Because
probably
every
wouldn't.
injury that I've ever had, and I've been doing yoga for 28 years, has been me pulling a dish out of the dishwasher, falling off of a massage table, getting in a car accident. And I've been doing yoga for 28 years
Yeah,
and I've never been injured.
yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to say that, but I do think there's a lot of people that put a lot of emphasis on like, you can cause injury. And I'm
Oh
kind
yeah,
of like, so can you at the gym. So can you if you're ice skating. So can you if you're running.
yeah, yeah.
So can you if you're running up and down the stairs of your house, taking a dish out of the dishwasher,
Totally.
painting. You could hurt your shoulder. I mean, I don't know. Like it's like a movements thing, and you
Yeah.
anytime you're gonna move. You could hurt yourself.
I told this story maybe on this podcast one time about the guy who went through the window at Yoga Vita in New York while uh, Ilaria Baldwin was teaching. Do you ever hear that story?
No.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a huge lawsuit. You know, Alex Baldwin's wife is a yoga teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. She
Oh,
was
what
part
did he do?
owner.
Headstand and he fell through the window with his feet?
Oh, it was insane. What we were doing at the time was like
Were you in the room?
I wasn't in that class, but I was taking class while like the same week that it was
You like
happening.
headstands. You do them in my class.
I love headstands. I'm
Yeah.
not very good at them, but I love them.
I've seen you do them at the you did it at the end or whatever, like you wanted to do it. I don't even teach. I mean, like I don't. I just offer if people want it. I don't teach it in a regular vinyasa class. That
Yeah.
needs to be a workshop, and I don't think it's an appropriate moment for people to do that. I think that's where I think I draw the line because, in terms of what you want to call hurt, I'm not so. The neck, the
Mm,
neck is a whole different world.
yeah.
The neck, an injury to the neck versus like, okay, injury to your knee or your ankle or your shoulder or something. I mean, those little, no, I'm not trying to categorize it, but this could actually be, you could paralyze yourself.
For sure. But if you regularly practice it, don't you think that you're going to have stronger neck muscles, better head
Sure, I just
support,
think
and
that people need to like, people in a regular class, there's just too much going on. I think if the class is smaller, like so, say you have a day where you have, not as high of attendance, and you have a good group that you know is really open. That's part of the reading the room as the teacher, and then taking some time to teach it in the class at the end and really focus and like have some room between people and stuff. I think when you're in the classes where they're overcrowded at times or they're, no, I want to say filled to capacity because we won't go past our capacity that we've set, but crowded and lots of different energy levels and different levels of students in the room, and it's warm and people in the room that you haven't practiced with at all yet. Sometimes
w-
you don't need to do that.
it's incredibly intimidating to be practicing next to somebody whose practice is way beyond yours, way more advanced, and you
Yeah,
you feel
that's the
like shit.
problem. What That's a problem that we have in terms of our business, in terms of um where people will be discouraged and not come back. And I think that the issue with that is that the truth with yoga is like anything that you do is kind of actually being in the room with others doing it at different levels is actually good for you because it helps you learn. And so it just does. Like the being in the community and having this, like you're watching them, you're watching the teacher, everyone's moving together. It helps you learn. I mean, you could essentially put on a DVD and follow along with it at home if you felt, that that's not. But I think being around other people helps you learn better.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I've learned so much from watching other people do yoga, from being in the room. I think like Jiva Mukti was like the stereotypical example of that, where
Loved
they
it.
have us practice facing each other, so half the room faces
That's
in,
that's
the other half faces
that's
in.
Ashtanga.
I guess that's where they get it from.
Yeah.
It was a heavily Ashtanga based practice, but that
Yeah.
was how they were doing those classes.
That's
You
an
know, as
interesting thing. I tried that once, like when configuring. Well, I remember I was working for another yoga studio for a while, and I was a manager there. And one time we were discussing that, like in terms of like protocol for the studios and whether we were gonna have people face each other. And then we were like, this will be really cool, and we tried it. And so we were like, okay, everybody, you see if you want to set up your classes like this. Told the teachers, and then I went in to do it and I did it in my class and I did it for like 3 times, 3 weeks in a row. And I hated it. I was literally like, as a teacher, it was extremely stressful for me because there was a lot of students that were misinterpreting their rights and lefts based on,
terrible.
and then it was harder to model. And it was strange to have yourself like in the center and be like surrounded like that for me.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like, I don't feel comfortable. I don't know. It was a weird vibe, and I was like, I don't like this.
What about the stage? Sometimes you see that.
Oh my god, we had one at this one place I taught, and I hated it. It was so
It's bad, right?
weird.
Yeah, I learned that as a
We
DJ.
got rid of it.
I
I
learned that as a
complained.
DJ. It's
We all we
unacceptable.
it was actually all of everybody. It was another idea that we all had collectively. It wasn't like somebody was like, and I'm saying I agreed to that. I was like, this will be cool. We should do this, and like it's just things you see and you try and you learn, and you're like, nah,
Yeah.
you know.
There was somebody recently on Twitter who was talking about how the stage has ruined dance floor culture. How, when you put the DJ up on too high of a booth,
Oh,
that
right.
everybody keeps on looking at them and trying to take pictures instead of dancing. And it makes perfect sense. The college DJ of that I was always trying to get higher and higher. So
Really?
yeah, there was,
Why?
because I was obnoxious and I wanted to be the star. Yeah, it was
Oh.
ego, ego, ego. Feed me.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. The yoga
put me
teacher
up,
ego
bring
is
me
a
up
bit.
higher, higher, higher.
There's a lot of that in yoga. A lot, a
Yeah,
lot.
which is it's interesting, right? Like the whole idea is supposed to be kill the ego, and then you go on Instagram and
I
that's
think it
it's not
draws in,
it's not what you
including
see.
myself. I think it draws in very creative people. I think it draws in. It's a performance based thing, so in many ways, I think it draws in some level of, I don't want to say like actors, but that type of like people, theater, acting, can performance based people, dancers, gymnasts, creative type public speakers, teachers. Thinking about teachers, think about teachers as you're growing up. Like, no matter what subjects, there were always some certain ones that were characters. You're like, I can think of some in my time that were almost like celebrities in the school,
Yeah.
because like they're like, you gotta get that guy's class. You know what I mean? Because it's like, he's so, why? Because he's entertaining, right? Because he has a certain way that he draws you in to listen to him. And so, there's always that kind of like energy in a yoga teacher. Most people prefer yoga teachers that, you know, the the experience that was delivered was something that was, you know, that drew them in. People don't go back to teachers that are unmemorable, or um don't evoke an experience in them in some way, is what I think. I think you go back to the you'll because anytime you go to a yoga studio, you're going to go to classes in different yoga studios, right? And you'll find like that you gravitate, like you'll be like, I like that teacher's pretty good. I also like that class. I don't know, I really liked it that date. I like that teacher. I like that time. I like teacher. I liked everything about that. It was good. I feel comfortable in that class. I like the way the flow was. I liked what they did, so then you tend to be like, once you've done something, you liked it, and your experience was valuable and worthy, that it's something that you can count on to be that way, then you'll go back to it.
Do you think that things are going to shift to people just practicing at home and
No, 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 not at all. I don't think so.
I mean, what was the experience during COVID being a
Oh my
business
God, it
owner? You had
was,
the studios before 2019, and
yes.
so you had to
Just
experience the
one,
whole
just one. I actually opened the second one.
during the pandemic.
Yeah,
So what was it like here in Pittsburgh? I mean, I keep on asking people, but I wasn't here, so I didn't get to
crazy.
experience life in Pittsburgh during the pandemic. I got
I
here
think we had. Where were
six
you?
months ago. It was in Charleston.
Okay, so you really had it much better. But we had it much better than some places too. So I would say we were not like you, but we weren't like other places. I know that, like, for example, teachers, like my teachers from other cities like Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles and stuff, they're ones that had brick and mortar studios. Like, they were not able to open. They were doing that for way longer than I was. They were actually sending me messages and stuff like regarding like being like like, oh my God, you're so lucky to be open, and oh my God, you don't have to do this and you don't have to do that. It was crazy. I think it was, I had a very real nervous breakdown, I will say. And it's not because, like, I understand that so many people went through so much, and I understand that it's not the end of the world to lose your yoga studio. But where I was in this certain place in my life was, I had been divorced for the second time, and I hadn't lived on my own for a very long time, like in a small apartment by myself. I had been a yoga teacher, living paycheck to paycheck because my divorce was not financially settled at all. And so I needed to, like, I became an entrepreneur out of necessity. because at that point in my life, I did not want to go back to what I had been trained to do, like
The KDK,
journalism.
the TV
Yeah.
stuff.
Journalism, and I didn't want
Was
to,
it KDKA or no?
yeah, I did both KDK and WTA. And then I didn't want to go back into that because I knew that I had been out of it so long that the industry had shifted, and I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I couldn't pick up where I left off, and I felt that the the hours in that almost killed me anyways. And then I also had, been in it when there was certain plane crashes like flight 423, and some bi- things that had happened when I was in the news business, like the OJ trial and different things that like had consumed me. So I don't know. In
What
any
was that
case, I
flight?
flight 423 in Pittsburgh. It was a bad crash, and um yeah, I don't really even remember all the details. I'm blurting it out with like literally 9/11 right now
Yeah,
in
that's
my
what I was gonna
mind.
say. I know
But
United 93 is a big deal in Shanksville, and I definitely have
oh
patients
yeah,
that
no,
come
no, no,
and see me that live
yeah,
near there.
no,
What is it? Somerset,
we
right?
should Google it.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna Google it while we're
Somerset.
talking so I can give you the proper. But
Yeah,
this
yeah, well,
thing, I didn't leave the news business for 48 hours. Um, oh, gosh,
that's annoying.
when I when this happened. Okay, let me look
I
it
love
up.
those frames.
Do you like them?
Oh
People
yeah.
think they look like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh, I have a pair. I have a Dahmer pair too, but
Oh,
on
do
women
you?
it doesn't do that.
Oh,
On
you don't think?
on men it does.
You think? Oh,
There's
yes.
like no female serial killers. There's like one, and she has a movie about her, and it's amazing. So like my favorite movie.
This was Flight
Do
423.
you know what
Oh
I'm
my
talking
God.
about? Charlize Theron monster.
I do. She,
Unbelievable.
she was so ugly in that. Like literally. I was like, ugh.
That's acting. We don't allow people to act anymore. Now in order to be a killer, you actually have to be a killer. In order to be a bird, you have to actually be a bird. It's they don't let people play roles anymore,
Right.
But she
I
really did
found
it.
it. It was not I
She was
just
not ugly, but she made it happen.
Oh, that was crazy. That movie makes me nauseous
It's
when I think
intense.
about it. Like I think I watched it twice.
Yeah.
But I think it's nauseating. Like actually I would never right now I would never want to see that again. I'm
The
over
energy,
watch.
right? Like that.
Oh,
Like
it
the
was
reason
so
I
it
couldn't
was
watch the Dahmer flick.
I didn't watch the Dahmer thing.
I'm an empath. I suck up energy really really
I didn't watch
easily.
the Dahmer thing either, and
I
everybody's like,
couldn't.
"Yeah, watch it," and I'm like, "I can't."
I can't do stuff like that. I
Mm-mm.
can't read. I can't. I don't
It
watch
hurts
true.
me.
I don't listen to true crime. I don't
Mm-mm.
watch true crime, and it's intentional. And for people like you that do energy work, that touch people for a living, like absolutely. But I feel the same way as a doctor. I'm touching people. I'm putting my energy into their bodies. I'm transferring it. And if I'm taking in negative stuff like that, that's not good for my
See,
patients. It's
I
not good for me.
right, that's true. I mean, I guess if you're in, I don't like to even compare myself to a doctor though in any way. I mean, I think
Why?
that's odd that people do that sometimes. Like with, well, I mean, like a yoga teacher, it's a service. It's a service. It's the what you do is you provide a service. You're providing a service slash performance service. So it's like you're doing something, performing something, guiding people through something for them to have an experience. And so that's really, really cool. But I don't think that it is necessarily like, I don't have any notion that I have like I don't know. It's
You
not,
you don't know that you heal people. You don't know that you help people live better lives. That you get
I
people
think
through
they
things
do.
that they're stuck on.
I think they heal themselves through through an experience that you bring. I don't think that. I think that that's like weird. I don't know that I could like feel that way about it. It's really, I think like when you like for me when people say things like that, I think that I get, wow, that's pretty intense. It's almost like too intense for me to handle. Do you know what I mean?
You're a community leader. That's another similarity. There's an expectation that you're living a moral life, that you're a guide for people.
I think that's scary.
Of course. It's responsibility. That's
Yeah.
that's what life's
I mean, do
about.
you think that though we have to like, I mean, I feel like, you know, I think a lot of yoga teachers in general, I think a lot of yoga people, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. I think a lot are broken. I think there's a lot of broken people in that industry.
I was
And
going to
I,
ask you about the documentary, right? I mean, that was the big one was
w-
on
what,
uh
Bikram?
yeah, Bikram.
Yeah, well, that's a
It's
completely different.
terrifying.
I mean, it's terrifying, but I think you could see some of the draw towards him, I guess. Um,
But the Ashtanga community is similar, right? It was like Patabi or whoever
they're all like
was
that. I mean, I never came into that. The yoga that I did, I never did Ashtanga, I never did Bikram. I've never followed any of those gurus, never followed, like, I never did Baptiste yoga, nothing like that.
Rocket. That's the other
Never did
same ball gang,
rocket.
right?
Like, I don't do these like big things. I like, I will say, I will give so much credit to the owner of Yoga Flow for her ability to create just like a style of yoga that was just I don't know that she created it or not. I think for me she was the first person that saw as doing creative yoga in our city.
Hmm.
um
What's her name?
Her name is Dominique Ponko.
Anko.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you know her?
No.
No.
Who did she learn from? Like, what's the lineage?
Well, interestingly enough, she was taught Baptiste yoga, and she learned from one of the other main franchise yoga studios in Pittsburgh, Amazing Yoga.
Yeah, I've been
But
there.
she veered off and did her own thing. And like, so she had that background, but she kind of just like did her own thing with it. And I think that like I was drawn to that. So my initial introduction, so my teachers that I was talking about, like in the little squirrel hill that we were comparing, that older woman,
Yeah.
she also did her own thing. There was no style, that she wasn't subscribing to any kind of like, this is what we do. She was like, you could tell she was, I don't want to say making it up as she goes, but she was just providing like what felt right to her and like what she liked. And she created, you would come to her classes and like she had a method to it. Like, we're going to do this first, and then we're going to do that second. And then like we're going to build off of it, and then we're going to bring it here. And like it was like the way she would do things. And she had her style, and like it was hers, and it wasn't like any specific like this is ashtanga, this is anything like that, you know what I mean? Like it was just her thing. So
Yeah.
like people will be like, I do yoga. Like when I got involved in yoga studios, I didn't know there was any kinds. I
Wow.
didn't even know. I'd been doing yoga for like, from like the early 90s until the early 2000s. So it's like 10 years of yoga that was never subscribed to any kind of like whatever, just like literally yoga at community centers and in prenatal and things like that. Like I had never done studio yoga or known that there was anything. When I went into teacher training, I didn't even know there were yoga sutras. I didn't even know there was anything about anything. Like
What are the sutras?
the yoga sutras are how yoga came about. Essentially, it was a it's a book of 196 aphorisms that uh aphorisms meaning threads, like so little, not one sentence, but like little sections, where they talk about how, what is yoga and how to do it, achieve it, and for what purpose.
Who wrote it?
Patanjali, some sage.
This is like the original. This is the beginning.
Yeah.
And then from there, Patabi Joyce and
Well,
the guy who wrote
actually, it's
Light on
well before
Yoga.
Patabi Joyce.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is there's a man named Krishna Makarya,
There
and
we go.
he's in India, in Mysore, India, and he's doing things out on the streets. And I think with people that he knew, he had put himself, he was doing motions and movements and kind of like doing these kinds of things with breath. He put himself in a cave at one point, they say for maybe 7 years or something, and he like mastered all these postures. And he did them based on, they came from the fact of like uh people had observed animals, Tibetan monks had observed animals out in the woods, and they had also come to this place of realization of enlightenment by, removing the ego and going to these different places. And while they were meditating and seated, they realized that the mind was constantly busy discerning, like, my left hip, oh, there's an itch. Oh, like labeling, and not being able to sit. Oh, now I have gas. Oh, now I have to fart. Like, oh, now my nose itches. Like just noticing how you don't unable to like transcend. And so they started to like, observe the way that animals moved, and they started to do stretches. Like that's why everything's named after animals, and wolves in the woods stretching is down dog, and like, kind of just doing that, observing animals and meditating, and the postures grew out of that. And then they started to have like, initially it was like circus tricks where these peddlers would be on the streets doing weird things with their body for like literally like tips, just like you see anywhere where people are doing like, it was like circus tricks. It
Yeah.
actually started as circus tricks, and people circus tricks in India, albeit, but circus tricks. And so this guy, he knew how to do that, and uh he also knew about the Yoga Sutras. He also knew how to move his body, and he had been doing things. The king Maharaja.
Hang on. I gotta bring up three things so
Okay,
that we can connect these threads. Otherwise, I'll lose them.
okay.
So first of all, why, as the king of species, the smartest animal with all of the intelligence, do we have to look at the other animals in order to figure out how to move our bodies comfortably?
I think it was just they were meditating and they were
Yeah.
observing it. But yes,
But it's like a
that's
rhetorical question. You know
no,
what
but
I'm
it
saying?
is. I agree with you.
Like
Like, I mean, that's interesting that we looked towards the animals, but
because they don't
well,
have
because
all
we
this ego, right? All this like super ego and all of
no,
this
they just feel they live in the present moment.
id. It's like all id,
Yeah.
which sometimes we
I
need.
mean, there are animals that have feelings. I believe they do, but they definitely are not as driven by their feelings as they are by their instincts and by their ability to be in the present moment. They're not thinking about what happened 4 days ago.
Yeah, and when you're able
They're
to,
not.
yeah,
I just don't believe they are, but maybe they are. I don't know. No
no,
scientist.
no, definitely. I mean, I think you can get to that place with different substance and compound.
Yeah.
And for example, you'll get into your car and and just feel how uncomfortable the settings are. You're like,
Yeah.
I've been driving around for 3 months with my seat all wrong. Like,
Yeah.
and I never noticed it because I never was in this state of mind that I need to be in order to like feel right. So
Feel
that's,
right in your body.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two is, um, why are we doing circus tricks? So if the original yoga was just to impress people, did we get rid
I
of all
don't
those postures?
So
Did
I
we
think there
keep the
was
ones
this
that are
thing
good for
going
you?
on
And
was that like these people were doing that, and then there were these sages. It came down to this. This guy had these kids, royal princes, and they were rambunctious, and he needed them to get a discipline. So he hired one of the circus tricked Indian guys, Krishna Makarya, to
yeah.
train them.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's where Ashtanga yoga is born.
Huh.
Because yoga comes from literally, as people like sit here and argue about how we've westernized it into this physical thing, it was
It
physical.
was a discipline to
Well,
help
the
these
initial
kids.
yoga written in the Yoga Sutras is not physical, but when Krishna Makarya, an Indian man, brings it to the palace to the boys, he's doing it purely physically. He's bringing it there because he's charged by the king to train his sons or cousins and all the royal teenage boys. So it's made for men, number one,
Mm.
for men's physical body. That's why there was so much arm balancing initially and so many chaturangas, because it was upper body strength. And men have if men doing arm balancing and Ashtanga yoga, like when I do my arm balance workshop on Saturday, any men in the class, like my ability to get them into the poses will be higher than the women in the class. And I mean, I'm much as I can do it because I've trained myself to do it, but men have an upper hand in arm balancing. So anyways, that's where it comes from. He makes it because that's where it comes from. And then so they begin to call that yoga. And then It
He had uh like so it went from Krishnamacharya to three people. To one of them's like light on yoga.
so
What's his name?
Iyengar's his brother-in-law.
Yep.
So
Yes, Iyengar.
Iyengar's his brother-in-law. He's married to Krishnamacharya's sister. And then there's TKV Deskachar, who is his son. And then Patabi Joyce is his student.
Got
He's
it.
the student of Krishnamacharya. And also the woman who brought pretty much was one of the people that brought the style of yoga that we do today, or the glamorized version of yoga that we do in the West today, which is Indra Devi. So she was the woman who sought to be taught by Krishnamacharya. She was a Russian actress turned Bollywood star who married a Czechoslovakian diplomat who was running in the circles of, hanging out in those circles in India. And the ambassador to Czechoslovakia became her husband. She ends up meeting Krishnamacharya. She's not feeling well in her body. She hears that yoga can heal you, and she asks him to train her. And he tells her no because she's a woman. And they get in this fight, but ultimately she uses her channels. She uses her resources of having her husband know the king to force him to train her. So she finds a way. And I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but that's what she did. And then he was forced to train her. He tries to break her basically by like making her get up at 4 in the morning. She's not allowed to take anything but cold baths. She has to eat only austere foods, no sugar, no whatever.
Isn't that still what they do in Mysore?
Yeah. And she basically like does it, feels great. It heals her heart condition. And
Whoa.
she becomes on the path of doing this. She then opens up a school in Shanghai. She then eventually moves to the United States and goes to Los Angeles. And that's where she makes the yoga studios that Greta Garbo and Marilyn Monroe, and all the pictures you see of Marilyn and her bow pose in her white swimsuit and stuff like that. That was Indra Devi. And then she creates a retreats in Mexico and wellness things. And she's friends with Elizabeth Arden and the cosmetics and the skincare. And then she combines them into yoga and health and well-being and women. And that's where it starts to take hold. And that's like in the, I think in the 60s, in the late 50s, early 60s.
But we had to wait until spandex was developed to really see things take off.
That's the thing. We didn't wear spandex. When I started doing yoga, you wore sweatpants. Like literally. I wore like literally when I think about all my yoga outfits until like the early 2000s, there were no such yoga pants until like maybe late 90s, early 2000s.
Are you making any clothes, or do you have
No,
deals
no,
or
no, no,
anything?
no, no.
You
I
guys
just
sell
buy things.
stuff at
Yeah, we
at
do,
the
but that's
studio, but
just
it's
like
just like printed.
we sell our own merch. Like we get it. You can make nowadays. Anybody can make designs, and put them on T-shirts. You just have to get a T-shirt company to print them. So we do that, but we don't make any like we don't design actual anything except the logo or whatever we're putting on the shirt. We design that piece, but not the actual clothing.
Home lounge.
The Own Lounge, yeah,
Respect. The last piece that I wanted to tie up was
yeah,
the plane crash. You were going to tell me the story. You looked it up.
I did. I misspoke it, so we got to correct that. It was flight 427, not 423. I got that confused. But yeah, it crashed in Hopewell Township in 1994. Killed everybody on board.
Wow.
Yeah, it was scheduled from Chicago with a stopover in Pittsburgh to Palm
Oh
Beach,
my God.
and it crashed approaching the runway. Yeah.
How many people?
All 132 people on board were killed. It was the deadliest air disaster in Pennsylvania's history. The aircraft's rudder malfunction went hard in the opposite. So I was actually in the news business, that working on the desk and in producing at the time, and so we got called in. And in those days, like I don't know, like we were there for. I honestly think I worked for 23 to 4 hours straight, like just like in terms of like the coverage that was going on. Um,
Where is this?
Hopewell Township.
North, south, east, west?
North. Northwest.
North Hills or so.
Northwest, yeah. No, yeah, North Hills. I don't know, but yeah.
I've been working in the North Hills this week
Yeah, it's
in
the Northwest.
Cranberry and in
Oh, really?
at Passivant.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I know where that is. I've been to
McCandless.
Cranberry twice.
Yeah,
I don't go out there much.
yeah, me neither. It's
It's
all new to
far.
me. Yeah, it's a hike, but it's been really cool. There's actually some really interesting people who live up there, and I've gotten to meet some really cool families.
Do you like the South Hills?
I like living here. It was like the only affordable place we could find land. I wanted my kid to have a backyard somewhere he could run around and you know
That's a really good point.
dig in the dirt.
Affordable place we could have land.
That's it. I mean, we're
Well, in the
renting.
city, because you could have affordable land out like far away from the city.
Yeah,
But I don't know how you feel about not living in a city.
15 minutes to work for me was crucial.
Yeah.
The big problem is, and so
But yeah, see, I like that you said that. Like you're basically like, you know, this is where my barometer is. Yeah, I know. I know people that have driven, I'm not kidding you, 2 hours to work and back. And I'm like, who the fuck does that?
my dad,
Pardon me if you
my
did it.
my dad drives 2 hours every day.
Oh, really? Your
Yeah,
dad? I
he
know.
lives in
Like,
Ipsy and he works in Detroit, and he drives an hour to and from work. I could never do it. I mean, there's not enough podcasts in the world. I'm helping. I'm helping make it doable. We are.
I
We're
just
helping to
don't.
make it a reality. But
I live 7 minutes from either of my studios.
do you
I'm
walk?
directly
Or
smack
ride your
dab.
bike?
No, I drive. I drive. I mean, I get carpools a lot, but yeah,
Oh,
no.
cool.
I don't have a bike. I do want one. I think that would be good.
Yeah, get a fixed gear. Don't
I
you live
only
in the East?
ride
You live in
bikes
the
when I'm
East
at
End, right?
yeah, I only ride bikes at the beach. I don't know why I don't ride bikes here. I used to
Fun
ride
too.
bikes when like, when you're raising kids and doing all the things. I mean, we did. I just don't have a bike right now. I don't walk because to be honest, well, for a portion of the year we're in not good weather and I can't handle that
The,
weather.
the the 9 months of crap weather in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I can't handle it. I hate rain. Rain I hate more than anything. Rain I hate more than cold. Rain I hate.
You should move to Santa Fe or New
I hate
Mexico,
rain.
somewhere where it doesn't rain, right?
Oh God, I do need it.
Perfect
That's
weather on like the plateau. I forget what they call it. It's not a plateau. It's it's a it's elevated,
yeah. What is that
and then
called?
there's like a
But you're just like it's just that nice air that's beautiful and sunny, and maybe some chilliness at times and stuff.
yep,
Like that's what I thrive in.
yeah.
I also do like the beach. I just don't like. I would think I would like rain more if I was in a more tropical area. I think rain in a city such as Pittsburgh is really quite depressing.
Have you ever lived anywhere else?
No, no, yeah, I did. I lived in Columbus, Ohio.
That's not somewhere else.
I mean, that's what I mean. So, yeah. But I mean, directly from Pittsburgh, no, that's the only city I've ever lived in otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the biggest regret of my life. But I don't say that because I don't love Pittsburgh. I do. I think I just had so many ideas about places I would love to explore and do and see. And I've really just got really caught up in being like a very chained to what I do type of person. Like whatever thing I'm in, like I was never really like that mobile, like I went straight out of like college into work and like right here in Pittsburgh, and like I was in everything I did was chained to like basically the job that I'm in. That's how I've lived my life. You know what I mean? Now some people are just like, I don't want to do this and I want to go live somewhere and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do. I've never done that. Never. I've never done that. I've been always living my life based on what my occupation or like livelihood and or phase of life is. So even in terms of like motherhood, right? Where kids are, they're going to school, they're doing this, they're doing that, like you're all stuck in it. Like it starts to be like this is what we're stuck in. It's just kids have like all their like when they're little you can move them around and stuff, but like once they get stuck into that whole world, like from like late elementary school on, I'd say I'm going to say like 5th 6th grade on, they're like that's it. Like I mean if you move them then you're like that parent like move takes
Well,
makes their kid be the new kid and shit.
well, I definitely experienced that.
Did you as
Well,
a
yeah,
kid?
yeah.
I did once. My parents got divorced and I had to move. And it was tough.
You had to switch high schools or
No,
middle
I
schools?
switched, I moved in middle school into no, 5th grade, 5th grade.
So you did K through 8 or K through 5 one place and then 6 through 8th or something. That's like pretty standard though, because it's middle school, right?
Well, no, I went in so my 5th grade was the last year of elementary school,
Yeah.
because in Pittsburgh, 6th grade becomes middle
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
So, I actually missed I went from my, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and then I went into
Okay. So you swapped in 5th. You
yeah.
missed the last year of experience with your elementary school.
Yeah, and then I went in it was kinda nice so that I got the one elementary year in before we headed to middle school, so I got more comfortable with people. I don't think I got into the right, friend group back then. I, know for a fact that I think back on my middle school experience as very high anxiety in terms of, friends and, dealing with myself as a tween. I think I was extremely anxious tween.
Oh yeah, I had no idea who I was or who I wanted to be.
No.
I felt like I was a little bit neglected by my family,
Oh,
and so
really?
I was trying to act out and create narratives about myself that weren't true in order to get attention.
I think I did that too.
Like,
I also think if I go back in right now and imagine who did I want to be then and what I thought of myself, I have distinctly remember seeing myself as being a Broadway star or a famous author. That's literally was when I'm a tween, I see myself I write in journals all the time and some of them are half written fiction novels at the time. I'm a writer and I'm writing my book and I'm writing my book all the time. And there's a zillion journals that are just 4 chapter books that just go nowhere and get you know what I mean? There's characters, there's
is it something that's, I mean, still part of your life? Or do you do any writing?
no, not too much anymore. I feel
Journaling?
not too much anymore. I don't do it anymore. I don't know when I stopped. I think do you know what? I got happy.
The art suffers when the person doesn't, basically. Right? I mean, that's kind of the
I got
drill.
fucking happy.
Yeah.
And I just
Hey, here's to that. That's awesome.
in who I am. Not to
Yeah.
say that I'm happy cuz I'm not about a lot of things. I'm not happy sometimes, but I'm saying I think my need to constantly explore my own head kind of
Yeah.
shifted. And I also became so consumed with creating I became consumed as a mother. I actually got an itch. I became consumed as a mom. I got consumed into I had stepkids. I got really consumed into it. It was that awful suburban literally suburban Real Housewives of Mount Lebanon that I was in. Oh my god, it was bad.
Soccer
Really.
practices
Oh my
and
god, yeah, ex-wife and me giving each other evil
oof.
eyes,
Oof.
yeah, constant weird gossip,
Ryan
our
Harles.
kids being in the school and having to and just all the different parents and different I definitely I listen, I'm gonna tell you what, not my favorite thing I ever did with my life. No.
Being married or
I
being a
don't
mom or
no, I liked being a mom. I think for me, I liked it when earlier on, and as the children got more and more complicated, and um, they also they go and they begin to be their own people and their own life, and that's now you're dealing with a person that lives with you and is affecting your mental state, and you're affecting their mental state, and everybody's and they're getting older and older, and they're a lot on you. It's a lot, meals, dinners, activities, it's a lot, and it's just I mean, there's so much fun times in it, but I'm not gonna lie and sit here and say that I don't find that it was exhausting. And I feel for me, at times I do better. Just I'm definitely I need to be by myself a lot.
yeah, I definitely have that as well. I've do it like I satisfy that and still try to be a good husband and
Yeah,
dad
I mean, and
because
you're in the thick of it
um
right now.
yeah, but I remember how important it is to have this. So I have this, like, you know,
Yeah,
activity
I
and
mean, I look back on it. I have little cringes, like at times where I look back and I'm like, oh, and I'm wistful. Like I have that. But I'm not a person like, you know, well, I mean, once I was never having any more kids. And I like basically knew for myself that like I did the experience. I have those like I just went over to some friends of my boyfriends uh who have young children. We were having like an afternoon like seeing their new place and everything. And they got this really cool house and like they've got two little ones. One's like 3 or 4 and it's just literally like what
Same
you have
ballgame.
here. Literally
Four
same
and 4
dynamic.
months.
Same dynamic. Yep. Mhm. Actually, that's exactly the same dynamic. You
Yeah.
should meet them. You guys
Yeah,
could be
yeah.
friends.
That'd be cool.
And they live in like Fox Chapel or something. And we
Yeah.
went over to see their new place and hang out with the kids and like like initially like I'm like hi hi and then like I get like hang out with the kids for a little bit and I realize that like my interest in that is very different now, you know what I mean, like and I also at the same time remember what it feels like, so it's like the phases go like once they get into be like teenagers and stuff, like you get further and further away from when they were little. It's like really interesting, like they really become different people, the way that you interact with them.
But you see people
You have to
as
say goodbye to them all the time. Like my son, every time I see him, like it's only for short periods of time, and then it's like he doesn't live in Pittsburgh. So, those people that all have their family around, that's kind of a cool. I have a lot of friends like that that all live in like one of my best friends, Elizabeth, her whole family is like here and they're all within whatever and they're always, everybody's always up in each other's whatevers and all that.
I was going to ask you about how that played in. So whether that was part of what kept you locked to this region, was it that your family was here, or
For
that
sure,
your
I'm really
partner's
close
families were
with my
here?
mom and my sister. I mean, my sister and I have had our moments where we weren't close, but we always have like, there's definitely something about our experience as sisters where we definitely feel a strong love for each other and, always want each other. Like, we've had our sister moments, but like we're both really close with our mom. And I do think like
Who's older?
I'm the oldest. I'm considered
It's
more of the difficult one.
it's just the two of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm considered the difficult one that like basically like has the most bizarro life of everyone. My sister's been married for we're going on like 23. Oh no. She's been married for 24 years. 23 years. Same husband. She has two beautiful kids. She has a pretty much uh her road and like what she's done with herself and everything. I've like changed careers numerous times. I've had two marriages, like I've had stepchildren, like I've done some weird careers and things like that. I was a preschool teacher once,
That's
a
what
salon manager.
Grace's mom did. Yeah.
That
Salon
was interesting.
manager.
I got really sick.
Oh, constant, right?
I mean, I'll never forget this one sickness I had. Like I thought I was going to die. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that that's why I never got COVID though. Is I think that I was thinking about it and I was like, I never got fucking
Super
COVID.
soldiers.
And I feel that my experience as being a preschool teacher for 3 years of my life
Yeah. Yeah.
basically immunized me to any disease that you could throw at me. I have
Yeah.
like a super immune system because I believe that those little kids all carried coronaviruses, like basically, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like somehow or another, my immune system got like some ability to like fight that off because I know I can still see myself in this like one really old tile bathroom where I was living in Shady Side, East Liberty area. And I'm like, in my early 20s, I'm a preschool teacher and I'm crawling on this like tile that the grout's not so great.
Yeah.
And like I'm like sick to my stomach, but I'm so sick that I'm laying my whole head on the grimy tile, and it's like pink and mint green and orange or something, and it's like I'm laying on it and I can still see like the filthy mold,
Ugh.
but I'm like so sick I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. The sickest I got in recent history was my 30th birthday trip to Europe by myself. Kind of like what you were talking about, how you have to be by yourself sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
I just did it. I said, look, I'm gonna do this, and I spent 2 weeks in Europe. I
Oh,
didn't stay in a
wow.
hotel for a single day.
That's a
Just friends and
fantastic
family.
thing.
I was in Munich with friends, like my best
Were
German
you
friends.
worried though? I need to ask you this before you say anything
Yeah.
else. Were you worried that if you did that, that you would miss, like, has sharing it with somebody?
Um,
Like that you would be there and be like, "Damn, I wish you were here" or something? Or were you together at the
no, I
time?
was
Or
I was with my best friend, the
oh,
one person who's never truly let me down,
okay. So you weren't
Isaac
completely.
Coulter.
Oh, you were. Oh my god. That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. Oh my god, you really, that's funny. But I like that, and that's gonna be my new mantra.
Yeah, yeah. I had to go. I had to do it because I'd never been to Paris. I was turning 30. I'd never been to Paris. I'd never been to London. I'd never been to Berlin, and the goal was to hit all three. I didn't make it to Berlin. I didn't have anywhere to stay for free, and the other rule was no hotels, no hostels. So friends and family the whole way.
Well,
And
lucky for you that you had friends and family there. Who the fuck has friends and family in Paris and London?
this this
This
uh
guy?
Jewish this Jewish boy. I was staying with my Jewish cousins in the 12th arrondissement in Paris, and they also have a place in Nice also, which is
Oh my
on the
god,
list.
you brat.
Yeah, it's gonna be sick someday. But the point of the story, the reason I brought it up is because it was like the sickest I've ever been. One of the sickest I've ever been on the plane flight home. So like my last day, I was staying in the maisonette flat in my cousin's bed. I'm so sorry, Charles, dude. This was one of the worst things I ever did. And I was so sick. I was just like, there's just blood coming out of my head, like bloody secretions. So I fucked up his bed bad. And then
What do you
on
mean
the
blood coming out of your head?
I had like hemoptysis. Like there
Like
was
pouring out of your
I
head?
had nosebleed, epistaxis, so nosebleeds, and then also like
Oh.
bloody mucus. It was like a terrible pneumonia,
Oh
basically.
my god.
So I got on the plane flight, and I had like big tissues stuck up my nose to try to prevent any more problems. But at one point, it just like started going, and the lady sitting next to me loses it. She just starts yelling for the stewardess. She's like, "Get this fucking guy out of here!" I felt so bad.
Oh my
I had to
god.
like stand up and ride with the stewardesses in the back of the flight, like in the back of the plane for the rest of the flight, basically.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was messed up.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I had a really bad nosebleed. Like, okay, so in 20, like the summer of 2020.
Yep.
Okay, so my
Yep.
yoga studio was
That
closed.
was like the same year. That was when I went.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's weird. You had a bad nosebleed. I had a bad nosebleed. Weird.
I used to get them all the time. I had to get it cauterized in when I lived in New York
They
because of the
wouldn't
weather and everything.
cauterize me because they were like, no. But it took them 5 hours to get it to stop. I was bleeding so bad that I actually had to sleep for an entire day
Jesus.
after because I was like, I can't even, I couldn't even keep my head up.
Oh, I'm
I
about to
was
give
so,
some medical advice on the podcast. So a lot of people think you have to just like tilt your head back,
you
but of
should
course,
not.
yeah, you don't do that because then you aspirate the blood, and then that's no good.
And you can also taste it in the back of your throat. It's
Exactly.
disgusting.
Yeah, no bueno. But what you do is you pinch the nose because all of the vasculature in the nose runs medially, so it
Yeah.
runs along the nasal bone.
There's an Instagram picture of me I posted during this ordeal of mine, this hospitalization.
Oh Jesus! Wait, you went
And
to the hospital? It was so bad.
yeah,
Wow.
it was that bad. So I was literally in my bed.
Do you know what the number one cause of nosebleed is? Epistaxis. I told a patient this the other day, and I don't think my attending was
What do
very
you think
impressed.
it is?
I know what it
Is it a deviated septum?
No,
Okay.
it's funnier than that.
What is it?
Nose picking.
Okay, I'm not gonna even say anything right now because I might have done that. And you can say what you want about me, but I'm gonna show you the picture of
Oh
me.
no, you've got pictures?
No,
It's gonna look like Andrew WK.
I grammed it.
Do you know Andrew WK?
Who's Andrew WK?
Oh, he was huge at PTS when I got here. I think he's actually from Ann Arbor, Michigan, but he was the "When it's time to party, we will always party hard." The one, do you know at the Penguins games after we score, the song that we play?
What is it?
It's called "Party Hard" by Andrew WK.
Oh, I didn't know that. Here I am.
Well, the cover of his album is him. Jesus, you got a nose job. It's not a big deal. You're Jewish. It's a rite of passage.
I did not. That's them putting that on my nose, and there's a clip.
Wait,
Do you see the clip?
Show the people. Hold it up here.
Oh, wait, where?
Yeah, that's
There?
the
Is that?
camera. Wait.
Oh, I thought that was the camera.
Yeah, no, you were turned the wrong way the whole time.
I
Oh, Jesus.
thought that was the camera.
No. Wait, angle your body more towards this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here.
We got it. We got it.
You got it?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
mess.
Yeah, that's me.
But
I said,
just follow her
oh
on
wait, I
Instagram, and then
did
you
it.
can see
I
more
did
pictures
it
like
in
that.
live time. 4:41 a.m.
Jesus. How did they?
Woke up at 1 a.m. with a severe nosebleed out of nowhere and tried desperately to stop the bleeding. No one was awake in my house. But
Oh my
after an
God.
hour and 2 rolls of TP, I had to wake up the boyfriend looking like a grisly murder scene and try to have him help me. After many futile attempts, we realized this was not normal. And over 4 hours later, Dr. Hickey at West Penn ER finally stopped it.
Thanks, Dr. Hickey.
Now I'm officially exhausted and very much hope this does not happen again. Anyone else have a serious nosebleed like this? And then all these people were like answering yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
My sister was like, "You're giving me PTSD from this post." Like, oh my God. But that's what happened. And then weirdly enough, and I went in and my mom had a nosebleed that summer too that was really, really bad.
Hmm.
And so we thought it was like something like genetic or whatever.
Wow.
But it just wouldn't stop. So thank you, doctor. I won't pick my nose anymore. Here's what I think happens with me, to be honest. I have a deviated septum since I was a kid.
Yep,
And
terrible.
what happens is one side gets really dry. And so there'll usually be this, like, I can feel it when it's there. It's just like a buildup and like it just needs to come out. Sometimes it rips the skin with it.
Are you team?
But I've never had not for it to stop.
Are you team? I have a deviated septum, and your pranayama is annoying as hell, like me.
Probably that it like
It's
sounds
so hard for me.
I think people don't like to practice by me because I make noises. Like I do that when I teach too. I can't help it. When something feels good, I'll be like, and I'm like, that's so weird and not good. But it's literally what's coming out of me.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like be gross. I like just there is that like I said to you recently, I really love the beginning of class a lot, and I feel really like it shifts me out of like whatever I'm dealing with or whatever it just brings me home or something, and I like it, and so I express myself like that when I'm in the and that's gross and noisy moaners and like loud breathers, but actually, I think from the point of view of a yoga teacher, I like that when students are like that. I like the noisy breathers. I like the noisy breathers, and I like the and the moaners and reactors.
What's the name of the breathing that I do where I constrict the back of the nose?
Ujjayi.
Yeah, my ujjayi breath is pretty loud. My breathing is pretty noisy. I don't think the people who practice next to me like it very much, but it helps me.
I think that you're probably right. The students who practice next to you don't like it, but the teachers like it.
The teachers,
I have some students that really breathe well, and they really support the energy in the room. Your teachers like that. I'll tell you what yoga teachers don't like.
Yes, get into it.
Is when people stare at them at the beginning of class without like you don't have to have your eyes closed, but like staring at me, like I feel like you need to be like meditating, like kind of just like I don't like when people stare at me like that. I don't like
don't come
when
in
people don't do like when people go into I think modification and like moving through and choosing not to do something or how you want to express it is fine, but like if you came in to do like an entirely different class, and I've seen that.
Hit me.
Do you do that?
Oh, I can be terrible. I can be awful. I mean, unbelievably bad.
No, that really you're the teacher.
Total
like
piece of
at
shit.
that point though, what I do,
I'll just leave. I've been now I'm learning.
No, I just ignore you.
Yeah.
But like what I'm saying is if you're a new teacher, that is really disconcerting for them. They do not understand. Like at this point, I now understand that I've written you off. I don't care what you do, and I'm not teaching to you anymore.
Yeah.
So you're over there doing that, and I can't you're doing that, and I still have to guide these people because not everybody wants to self-guide. So they want you to be like right foot, left foot, and you're like trying to guide them through. And that other person, like I actually will physically almost like turn my back away from that person.
Sometimes if the teacher skips aside, like if they give me pigeon on the right and skip the left, I'll take it. and be like, you
Well,
missed a
that I
side.
think is totally fine. If
That's
they skipped
acceptable.
it, yeah. That's the worst if you skip anything.
Oh, it happens.
Fucking up as a yoga teacher is the worst feeling. Like literally, I do a whole section in my teacher training about I do a module on the business of yoga and methodology, the performance of it,
Mm.
and like what to expect as a yoga teacher, and like feelings that come up, and how to like deal with like authenticity, syndrome, ego, rejection, brutal unkindness from people, like how to deal with that, in how where to put it based on my experience, and then the experience of some other yoga teachers that I have read books from, and things that have informed me on their experiences of that. And I basically say to them that, you have to um, you just have to realize that it's part of the gig. I think it's the worst part of the gig. Some people don't mind it, some people mind it a lot, some people just live with it. Those people that can't get used to it weed themselves out of teaching yoga. Nowadays with ClassPass and like social media and stuff, being a yoga teacher can feel really competitive. It can feel really nasty. Um, it can feel very much like uh, you know not the most enjoyable space when you feel like, there's pressure to put people
Well, most of them are
there's
getting
pressure to put
paid
people in a class.
based on how many people show up, right?
Correct.
Almost all of them. Like it's not
I
like
don't.
you just give the teacher $100 every class. Like it depends
So
on
there
how they
are
do.
some studios that do flat rates, but generally when studios do flat rates, that flat rate is going to be a lot cheaper, because they can't guarantee, they're not going to, because that's scary, because if the studio is putting out a certain amount of money and you're only got 3 or 4 people in your class, they're going to go broke. So flat rates are usually pretty cheap places to work. If you do what I do, which is incentive pay plus flat rate, because you can't just say, like, I don't just pay on just who's in the room. I give you a stipend of like, okay, there's an expectation that you're here 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after, so that counts for something. There's an expectation that you're preparing your class and that you're following the protocol to open and close the studio and interact with the clientele in a represent the business kind of a way. So for that you get this much money, and then on top of that you get a per head basis. And so that can look for teachers in my studio up to like $65 a class. Um,
Of bonus for filling the room.
mhm, yeah, up to $45 bonus. They already get, yeah. So it can be that, but it's like the reason for that is because the studios have the the studio, likely whoever owns the studio is making a livelihood out of it. So it's an income for the studio owner, as well as they have to be able to support the overhead. And so your job of like, so they are taking on all of the risk. So they take on all of the financial burden. So you come and you teach your yoga class and you get paid. And if you can't put, if you I've done that before. I learned my lesson. I had like really made some bad financial decisions like that, because it was like giving people a certain amount of money per class and then hoping that the bigger classes would wash out the smaller ones, but you're never going to make any money like that. And to be honest, then you don't have a very healthy business. And it's a I think not what people really want to talk about in the yoga industry is like the business of yoga, because it's mostly thrown around, I think, these days on social media, the idea of like, you know there's these people, just kind of everybody's putting themselves out there in postures and tutorials and all these things, and then like spewing stuff about, you know studios and business as though it's a negative thing. But in order to have those places to practice, it's a fact. I mean, it's not there's no way to have that unless somewhere somehow there's money being put
Yeah.
to do that.
Can you
Just
talk about the different like sources of revenue streams? So you have classes, you have teacher trainings, retreats, and then pop-ups,
yeah, that's
something
pretty
like that,
much
and
it. You
merch.
have Yep, that's the revenue stream. So right, and you have at this point you have an online platform too.
Hmm.
So
Which makes money.
yeah, hmm yeah, ours is profitable. So much so that I wouldn't cancel it, even though I don't. It's an extra expense and an extra thing that our teachers have to learn and be capable of in order to be hired.
Yeah.
Um,
Do they have to wear a mic in order to make
Yeah,
it
the
sound
mic
right?
is actually, we use a Rode mic, which is a really nice mic for
Yeah.
yoga teachers, but it's a wireless.
Cool.
So it clips like just like I could literally clip it right here like this and you
Yep.
wouldn't even like whatever. And then the other piece is attached to the computer.
It's only going to the computer to
hmm
the Zoom class. It's not amplifying their voice in the classroom at all.
No, 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 no.
Yeah.
We don't do Zoom though. We have a different platform because our students really didn't like the little boxes kind of vibed of
Mm,
so it's more of just like a more kind of professional looking platform that we use. So it's like you can watch it and like put it up on your TV or whatever.
cool.
Because one of the things with Zoom is that you can't cast it.
What do you mean?
You can't cast Zoom to a TV. Like,
Oh, really?
mm-mm,
Oh, that's weird.
no, Zoom does not allow it to be cast. So if you're doing Zoom, you're always going to be on a laptop. So if you're doing these other platforms, like we invested in actual software, um, that so I actually pay for two softwares instead of just one because most of the software companies their platform that they have for live streaming is run through Zoom. Even though it's their software, they've integrated a Zoom API into their whatever. I have that within the software that I use for my scheduling, but I don't utilize it because I pay for another platform because I want to utilize it that way because I got the feedback from my students that they really enjoy the casting experience. So like literally getting your phone or your laptop, casting it to your flat
Yeah.
screen, putting your mat down and then the teacher's in the big screen. And that's like, like how you see with like lots of different platforms and it's just a nicer experience than looking at the teacher through a little.
It's definitely the way I've done it. You know, so Francesca, the other teacher that was on the retreat, she teaches for, or at least she did do like Obey fitness. And so I would take her classes on there, which were, I thought, really great. But
Mhm.
for me, it's all about hands on, you know. I want hands on assists. You
You
can't
want
get
hands on?
them.
Okay, so hands on assist. We just actually started redoing them because
Yeah.
what happened was they got taken away from the pandemic.
Makes, yeah,
I mean, I
because
know that's it's we don't
doesn't make
I
any
when I
sense.
think about the progression of the pandemic and what people thought, like think about this. One day I was teaching yoga and there were 40 people in the room.
Yep.
And I went home and 3 hours later there was and I was nervous that day too because we had been hearing all these kinds of things and nobody knew what the fuck to do. And then the next thing you know, there's a notice that, we should or we might be closing and then the capacity limits and all this stuff. So we put it down, down, down. And then one of the things that came about was everybody was running to Target and getting antibacterial wipes and gels and then putting them in the studio. And then you took all of your block straps and rental mats
Jesus.
away because you were like, oh, you can't touch them and nobody's cleaning. And we have tea at our studio, you've been,
Yeah, yeah.
and we took away the cups because we were like, oh, we have to use so, in essence, the pandemic in some ways became this very anti-environmental situation because now we were using just like cups, disposable cups wipes, everything was all paper and like it was all about like everything being disposable. And so all the sustainability that we had had at the studio where we weren't using individual rags and things like that, like people were sharing the spray for the mats and sharing
Think
things.
about the masks. Think about the number of masks that have been manufactured and distributed worldwide and what that's going to do to the environment.
What it's gonna do to the environment, and we were like,
It's
I
insane.
find like, well, so I was like a person that was in denial in the pandemic. Like I literally was like that person that was like so afraid to acknowledge that it was really real so that I could have to acknowledge my feelings about it and acknowledge that I had to like actually live in this world where this was the way that the world was going to be.
Yeah.
I actually had like the Last of Us vibes or like the Handmaid vibes or something. I was like that emotional about it. And I had like I turned it into like it's the worst thing in the world, and I couldn't believe that I had just spent all this money that I barely had never made in my life, and then I finally made some money and finally got some kind of like headway back in my return on investment, if you will. Like, you know what I mean? You put all this stuff into something and you're like basically like you know, it wasn't about the money, but it was about the fact that, you know, I tried something, I was taking a risk and I put everything I had into it and now it was gone. And so now where do I go? I have to start from scratch. It wasn't like,
Did they
so
completely shut the business down for a period?
yeah, yeah. We were completely shut down. So we had to transfer everything into online. And that's where I
Like,
developed that platform.
how did it manifest? I mean, you got a letter from the government that said you can't teach
They put it
yoga?
on the news and they said, this comes from the governor and you may not have a business that's open or teach yoga. Yeah, it was like like law.
What?
You were
So
told by
what?
law.
I can't. What businesses were allowed to run? Like the grocery store?
The grocery store, Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, fast food restaurants,
Stop.
um,
What
and
the
that's it.
fuck? They shut down yoga, but they kept the fast food places open?
Yes, because you could drive through them. You could drive through. They didn't keep them open to go in.
How long was it? How long were you closed?
We were shut down for a total of 4 months.
What did you do? You running the online and
Running the
trying
online
not to
and
go
living in
crazy.
like a stupor of like couldn't believe this was my existence.
This is
I'm
2020.
I'm not gonna lie, I drank a lot.
Yeah,
I got weird. I was like, I don't know. I started like sitting outside on my deck, just like drinking at 2.
you were living by yourself.
No, I was living with my boyfriend, but he had a job that was unaffected.
This
He could work from home and make the same paycheck, and a matter of fact, we got a puppy. And he was so happy because he was like, I would never be able to fucking hang out with this puppy all the time. Like, you know what I mean?
mm,
And he was like, oh, I'll tell you what pissed
making the
him
most
off.
of it.
Sports got canceled. And then he had to watch fucking YouTube sports. And I kind of laughed because I
You're
was like,
my
really?
business
My
is shut
life.
down. I'm having
I'm
a
going to tell you
panic
what
attack.
pissed him off.
That's so funny.
Sports got canceled,
Yep.
and he had a girlfriend whose business was tanked,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
and she
she
was
did was
miserable.
fucking complain, and he
Yeah.
had to listen to that. So he was just literally like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
literally, like, I have to be this person, like, I'm in love with this person, and her business is, like, ruined, and all she does every day is, like, today's a good day, today's a bad day.
Did you have to
today.
keep paying rent when the business was closed?
So
Today's a good day. Today's a bad day. That was
I
really funny.
was allowed to postpone it and then work it out with my landlord for he gave me a break initially. Like he said, we're cool. Like,
Yeah,
and then
they understood. Like, there's no way you
I
couldn't
mean,
be open.
yeah, I mean, he was dealing with that from all of his properties. There's a lot of them. And then he was like, I mean, we'll get to it, but like initially the initial shock of it. And then he was like, you know, what we ended up doing was I went through a program that would pay him for me.
That's what I was gonna ask if there was like government assistance.
Yeah, he got back like maybe 2 months of my rent, not the whole thing. And
Yeah.
he called the other bit a wash, I guess.
Once things started back up, did they make you cut the capacity, or did they limit you in any way, or it was just 4 months of
Yeah,
hell and then back to normal?
no, we went back to normal with the capacity cut so I was allowed, you know, you've been to the size of my studios. I could have, if I'm following the guidelines, I could have 13 people in there because that would be like in terms of like how far apart people needed to be for comfort level. We
Yeah.
opened up like that with temperature checks. I cannot believe that I did that. So people would come in and I'd be like, okay, you didn't have to wear a mask at first because they didn't say that. So they let us come in
Yeah.
and nobody was wearing masks. They didn't say that. And then And we were still live streaming to people at home because some people didn't even want to come in. Lots of people didn't want to come in. The amount of money and memberships that were just gone was amazing. And then
Because
people would come in, and you would do the
temperature guy.
temp check. There was a guy that he lived like 2-3 blocks from the studio, and he liked to run to the studio. So he would run, and then he would wait outside for 5 minutes while his body cooled down. Because remember, this is like summer in Pittsburgh. So if he ran 3 blocks in East Liberty in 85, 90
Yeah.
degrees, he's a guy, then he was hot. And he had to wait because the temperature on the temperature check wouldn't like.
What did you have to do? Like if somebody
He
has a
just he would
fever,
cut. He would
if
run,
somebody has a
and then he
fever,
would
you
like.
send them home.
You weren't allowed to let them in. I mean, that was. I don't know what why I think I'm the boss, but yet I what like. Here's the thing: is my private small business, but like I
Yeah.
just am following these zany
Yeah,
rules
yeah,
that
yeah.
everybody's saying
Yeah.
to do. I did the same thing with the vaccination. I did all of
Oh
the
wow.
things that I did it. I put
They
a
had a vaccine
vaccine
requirement for a while. Yeah.
policy. I put that. Well, that wasn't
They
until
still have it at the
that
yoga
wasn't
hive.
until the Delta variant.
Yeah, the yoga hive still has it. I go there sometimes.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
We got rid of ours last. We got rid of ours. It's a year now since we got rid of it. So after it was last, it's literally 1 year because it was after last Omicron winter. So not this past winter, but the Omicron winter, where everybody like went
2021.
downhill again. Yeah. That we ended up when we came out the spring of that, we got rid of it because everything was just like, okay, like then they were starting to make new vaccines again and whatever. So now we're just like, you do you. You practice at your own, if you're not comfortable with it,
Are
you
you
don't come.
back to where you were before pandemic in terms of financials, or even better?
Um, I would say like I don't know that we've ever recouped. We have not recouped what we lost.
Yeah.
But like if I'm comparatively looking at what I do now in comparison to where I was right before we lost everything, like we're at a good level like that. But we can't like there's a lot that's underneath us that we can't have back or anything like
Yeah,
that.
there's
We're
this big gap. I think about it a lot because I kind of want to start DJing again in Pittsburgh, like
I
a
think I think
little.
it's up now. Yeah.
And yeah, it's up, but there were a lot of people who were living here who couldn't work and who still feel that like I had these
Oh,
months
so
of
they
missing
need to do
income,
it. Yeah.
and who am I to show up here
That's
and try
really
to take their
interesting that
work?
you think of that like that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's real. I wasn't here dealing with that with them, and so it's like that Drake line. Where
I
were
mean,
you when we were shooting in the gym?
I think that's really a great way of like that makes you a pretty wonderful person because I think that in a lot of cases with a lot of fitness people, yoga studios, and other things in general, I think that everybody started to have a panic at some point. Like there's only so much to go around and like almost feel like psycho about getting back to where they were and retaining every student they had. And that's just no fun. I had like, I could just tell that different businesses and different yoga studios had different rules or like the ways that they were handling things. And I, had people that disagreed with me. And I don't, I'm the type of person that's like, I don't want to know what you're doing. I'll do like, I'm gonna like look at the law, use my own mental capacity as well as like what feels right in my gut. All of those things factor into where my decision will be. And then maybe I have to pivot again and again. Maybe I do something and say something one day and I think that that's the way that I should be showing up. And then I start to realize that maybe that way is not working or maybe I'm not so that was such a fluid situation. I honestly can't tell you like when I think back on like the logic of going to a restaurant and wearing a mask to walk
Oh
from the
yeah, it's
front
wild.
to
Makes
the
no
thing with
sense.
the hostess and then sit down and
Makes
take your
no
mask off and
sense.
put it in your purse, but
Put
then go to the bathroom and
put the
put your
mask on to
mask
go
on.
take a
And
yeah.
like this
Dude,
whole thing
that's
going on, and then the waiter or waitress having the mask while you did not,
oh,
while
that
you're
always
sitting.
made me feel so uncomfortable. And it still goes on in different places. The waiter, it makes them look like a second class. when you're eating
What do you
and the
what do you think
servers.
the psychology of so for me, I think my cultural experience for the mask, though I totally understand the relevance of this health and safety risk. I mean, I grew up my stepfather was a doctor, and
Yeah,
I understand, like, he ran a vaccine research company. So I understand all of this idea of science of medicine and illness and disease, and like, and also being kind to not do that to other people. But psychologically for me, I had a lot of problem with the mask.
yeah.
I was feeling very almost like, I don't even know if this word would, like, this is what I feel when I think it was making me feel violated and kind of like raped when I
I
had it
I
on.
talked to so I was working in hospitals throughout the entire pandemic,
Yeah.
and one of the days I was waiting out front, and I looked at the person next to me. I looked back. We were all waiting for the bus. Everything, we were just waiting to get on the shuttle, and I didn't talk to them because I didn't know who they were. But
Right.
when I like looked back, I realized that it was somebody that I'd been working with for a full year, and that we'd never established any kind of relationship because we were just wearing masks, and I never saw the person as human enough
You,
to like
dude, I think
create a
there were
relationship with.
so many people that came to yoga that had masks on during that time that, like, I never really knew what they looked like. And so when the masks left, those that came in without their mask, like, I had to relearn to, like, communicate with them, and some of them I'd
Yeah,
be like, "And you are?" And they're like, "It's Jake," or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh."
yeah,
And, like, it was odd. I feel like, but this is the thing, wouldn't dentists or doctors tell you, like, "We've worn this, like, it's not the worst thing in the world. We wear this for our occupations." But I don't think that doctors, like, I don't recall it being like every doctor had it on all the time. Like, certainly during, if a person was very sick or during surgeries,
yeah. AGH
or
has stopped. So my understanding is AGH stopped, St. Clair stopped, and
but I mean,
UPMC will
like,
follow suit
prior to the
eventually. Never,
pandemic,
no,
the way that, I mean, you
no.
would go in to see your doctor, they didn't have a thing on their face.
For communication, it's terrible. Imagine what I do. So what I do is I take care of people with dementia and memory disorders for like 50% of my work.
How
And
can you talk to them with a mask on? It's so odd, like, they can't connect. I don't know, the mouth is a very interesting.
it's not just the mouth. There's the chin, the mouth, and the nose, right? And it's half of the face. So it's depersonalization, it's dehumanization. And the other thing that I've been thinking about recently is it's taking away sexual characteristics. So I'm not saying that there's a grand conspiracy to make everybody androgynous and to make everybody like not male and not female. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that when you look at somebody with their face covered from the nose down,
Absolutely.
it can be very challenging to determine their gender and determine
Yeah.
their sex.
Yeah.
Um, which I
It was
noticed at
really
Pigeon Bagels.
upsetting for me. I felt myself to be a person on the side of, like, I really, but I'm not a lawbreaker in the sense that I was like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist or a
Yeah,
lawbreaker, so this was the way we had to do it. We had to do it, but I struggled with it, and I struggled with my feelings about it, and I struggled with my dislike of it, and I struggled with feeling very selfish about that because I didn't like it at all. My job was so difficult with it that I was miserable. I can't believe that for 9 months of my life, I taught yoga in a mask and
no way.
on in front of people, but also on live stream. So if you go back
What?
to 9 months worth of our videos on demand, and I've just started to tell my manager to go back and take away those videos because
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
needs to look at that
no.
anymore. Like, we don't even, I don't, who in their right mind is going to go to a yoga platform
Yeah,
and look back at the videos from like 2 years ago? First of all, that's a long way to scroll.
yeah,
But
it
then if
is.
you're doing that, let me choose this video where Suzanne has a
Very, very
mask on
true.
her face the whole time.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what about our Disney trip where we're all, completely covered up? They wouldn't take our picture with the masks off. Like even the professional photos, we had to. I mean,
oh my God.
there.
So that's your videos.
No, those are the photos we
Those were the
have. Yeah,
photos from your.
yeah, for the Disney trip. I mean, it's definitely a thing.
I like actually look back at myself with the masks on. Like, there's plane. I have pictures of me on an airplane with like a big N95, and I'm like a big cone. Let me tell you what happened. That was the coolest experience ever. So last year for my 50th birthday in April, about a year ago, right? I went to Italy. And I was nervous about going because I always get nervous for I have weird issues with airplanes, even though my dad was a pilot.
Oh.
And then we were going to Italy. And one of the
Wait,
things
he
that
was a doctor and a pilot?
no, my stepfather was a
I know, I'm
doctor.
messing with you.
And my dad was a pilot. So going in the plane for that long, I have issues with thinking conceptually about claustrophobia. And then I have issues with the fact that I was going to be in a mask for all that time. So I was like,
Mm.
oh my God, but this is so worth it. You're going to LA. So you go and you get on, and I'm in there and I'm squeezed in because I don't, I'm not in any first class situation. And I'm squeezed in and I have this mask on and I have a coat and they brought around wine and
Cool.
I was like, this is great. I'm gonna totally pound like free wine on
Yeah.
those trips to Europe. I'm gonna pound some red wine like crazy and it's gonna knock me out. And then I'll wake up and I'll be in Italy and I don't have to think about this because I'm like anxious right now.
Yeah.
So I get the red wine and I do the whole thing and I have to set it down for a
You
second.
had to take your N95 off in order to
Take
drink
that.
it.
The whole thing is whatever, and the plane is doing whatever.
Yeah.
I set it down for 1 second on my tray,
Yeah.
and the plane bounces, and the whole wine comes and drenches me, like the whole glass. And she gave me a decent pour, and then I was covered in red wine and had that red wine stink,
Oh, nice.
and that was
That's a good smell.
so for 10 hours,
This was the beginning of the flight.
and I was in the middle seat. Yeah.
Wow.
I was miserable. And then when I got off to go out of the airport, and I'm walking around the airport in Brussels, I smell like like a person that was sat at a bar for
Wino.
20,000 years.
You were a wino.
I was a wino.
Smelled like a wino.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a lush.
But anyway, get to Italy, do the whole thing. Italy's real strict over there. They make us do the things with the mask, but then we can walk around. But it's outside all the time, so we're good.
Yeah.
And then we hear the day before we're coming back from Italy, President Biden puts down that you don't have to wear masks on airplanes anymore. And also, P.S., you don't need a COVID test anymore to get it back in or whatever and all these things. And so we're like, hallelujah. We're leaving in 24 hours to go back from Italy to the United States. And now, so we go to the airport. We don't have to deal with any of the stuff we had to deal with on the way there. 1 week later, and the whole world's different. We go and get on the plane
with no scientific rationale to make that decision. That's the key. Absolutely nothing.
That's a very good point. So then that's the rule now. So we get on the Delta plane, and the flight attendants
Delta plane, Delta variant?
Delta plane. The flight, nobody has masks on at all. Like the flight attendants, pilots, nothing. Yeah. Most of the passengers, you see occasional passengers standing in line, like, like take it down. But then you have people that are like in the cone, right? Yeah. And you get on a plane, and the flight attendant goes right away with her mic, and she goes, everyone, based on the United States government or whatever, the federal government has declared that we no longer have to wear masks on this airplane. It is optional. Yeah. And everyone goes, like in the plane. And she's like, but if you feel like you need a mask or wear a mask, that's up to you. Yeah. And so then
we're not going to punish you.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I went to Kennywood this weekend. They're now banning masks after dark.
Oh.
Because they want to know who does the shootings.
Uh-huh.
So it does say, like, you can wear it for your health. So if it's a surgical mask or an N95, it's okay. But no face coverings otherwise. Which is really interesting.
Well, so a criminal could just wear then an N95.
Sure. But things...
I'm sorry I gave that idea to any to the criminals out there.
Things are coming full circle, right? Because initially, the guy in the bandana in the Western was the bad guy.
Right.
But now, if you go into a bank without your face covered, well, 6 months ago, a year ago, if you go into the bank without your face covered, then now you're the bad guy. It's very interesting.
I'm pretty sure that the children that were born in between 2020 and 2022 that watch this face covering thing are going to have issues for some. I don't know what the issues are going to be, but I think they're going to be. And I also understand that my dog, who was born in that, has weirdness with people.
Wow.
Yeah, he does. And I know there's dogs, all dogs have different personalities and stuff, but he has a strange reaction to people with face masks and with hats. And I'm like, I don't know. I think there was we got him, it was really chilly spring, and there was a lot of hats and face masks walking around Lawrenceville. And he just doesn't like it one bit. It scares him.
Yeah, I wonder about communication disorders in children, about rates of autism in particular. I think it's going to be really interesting and
To
to
watch
see
how
what
that
happens. Yeah.
unfolds. We're never I mean, I can't believe I lived through it, and I'm glad that we are, you know, on the other side of it, I dare say. I have been completely traumatized in the sense that, like, that was to me, I think, the scariest. Those early months of the pandemic were some of the scariest moments I've had in my life, besides like certain things that have happened, like maybe traumatic things in my family.
Well,
Like,
fear was the goal, I think, in many ways, in the media at least, in the portrayal. You know, the kill counts on NPR, on
can
CBS,
you
on
imagine that they
CBC,
ran a ticker count all day in the corner of your
death
screen?
counts, and then nobody was talking about the survival rates. Nobody was talking about 99.8% survival. Nobody was talking about, you know, so there's the point that I'm trying to make is perception and the way that public narrative is shaped around something is huge. So you can have one event and have two completely different interpretations of it based on how the media kind of
Well, there are people right
shapes it.
now that I think, I still see students wearing masks at
Yeah.
times. I often wonder sometimes if it's more of like a, so I don't ask anything about anything.
Yeah.
Some people I think may feel that they're immunocompromised. Some people may feel that they just got over something and they don't want to, and they feel responsible to protect the public health for themselves. Um, and I think though that's a very valid, like, natural evolution. That's what's come out of this. I think that for me, because I am so traumatized by the mask in some ways, that I just want to live in that place where you go to the preschool and die from sickness.
I felt very babied. I felt like the government was babying me. They
Uh,
were telling me that I had to put this thing on my face because I can't control my secretions, that like, you know, why can't I just wash my hands? Why can't you trust me to wash my hands and to not like spit on
I
people?
felt like, it made people afraid of the air.
Yeah.
It made people afraid to breathe. This is all stuff that makes me really anxious. Like the fact that I was really lucky that the East Liberty Studios windows were like able to open, because that was
Mm.
like people felt really much more comfortable with the air open, the windows open. But I do feel like it made people suspicious of air, of like it was like, and there was all this stuff like about the idea of like trusting your immunity, okay? And people would be like, I don't need a vaccine. I don't need that. I trust my immunity, or I don't need to wear a mask. I trust my immunity. And, I'm going to say that in my back of my mind, like the based person that I am, like inside of myself, like could hear that from people and be like, yeah, I mean, didn't we do that before? But then there was the side of me also that's like, hey, you're not a doctor, you're not the government, and you don't like, you've got to go and listen to what they're telling you to do to be safe and to do the proper thing for other people. Otherwise, it says like people that decided that they didn't want to do that were labeled as bad people. So I felt like at times that that was something that was really on me as a business owner, a small business owner, particularly in the industry that I'm in. Like the choices that I made at times, I was trying to do the right thing, but at times I was also dealing with my own personal emotion of how I was feeling about it. And I think that, to a certain extent, people make a lot of opinions about that, about me and about other people that were doing stuff like that, because we were just literally, I think there were certain people that feel like maybe I was too lenient. And then I got called Hitler one day by somebody who thought I was too strict. So, like, literally, the person that's coming at you,
Jewish Hitler. Team Jewish Hitler.
yeah, I always thought that was funny. They were like, you're like, where are you, Hitler? This is what they did in the Holocaust to Jews. And I was like, oh my God, I am not. They're like using a vaccine card as a card like a Jewish star. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay, I don't even know what to do with this. Like you're calling a girl whose step grandparents were survivors of the Holocaust from
Right.
Auschwitz. Like this is crazy that you're saying this to me. I'm trying to make my students comfortable to be able to practice in my business. so
Yeah.
that I don't go bankrupt and like actually continue a business that people that want to come there find value in and are enjoying their time there. And actually, many people told me that being open and having that space to go to during the pandemic was the one thing that like actually kept them connected to not like losing their marbles.
You probably saved some lives by staying open as much as you could.
I don't know about that, but I
Probably.
I do think that I probably in some ways there was certain people that the actual not like me being open and our teachers that came there and taught and soldiered through it with masks on their face
Yeah.
were like, literally the showing up and the connection that some people felt so isolated. Some teacher trainees had told me that part of the reason they recently took teacher training was because during the time of the pandemic, they had come into the city, new to the city, didn't know anyone, had come here for a job, barely were here when everything got shut down. So they hadn't really rooted themselves into the community yet. And then when things opened up, one of the first places that they went and like tried out just to get out of their house, not knowing a freaking soul, was come to a yoga class. And then over a period of a certain little bit of time, they felt community there. And that was what they looked forward to after sitting at their desk at home, isolated every day, working from home. That like 5:45 class or whatever was what kept them from like literally just being completely isolated and feeling like there was like there was no hope. And one girl basically said, she was like, it made me love yoga so much, it made me recognize that doing yoga with other people is great. It also made me realize that I want to be in a community of other people that I want to be able to like share this with and do this with because it's fun for me. So there was that happened, and to me that's the purest part of what I do. I think like that's the inherent intention drive that got me where I am today, is like what I loved about it. I think along the way, like, you know, having been a business owner in the pandemic, that my path was really shifted, and focusing on financial survival became like a big forefront of something that I don't necessarily think I wanted that to be my intentions initially when I became a yoga teacher were just because I loved it so much. At the time I was married, and I mean, we used it as an extra contributory
Like
contributory, and there I got
contributor.
it,
Yeah.
income, but it wasn't anything that I needed to live at the time, but it
Yeah.
certainly helped our family. Everybody can use a little more money, right?
Sure.
And also like, okay, now like the extraneous items that me and the children wanted
Yeah.
but it was like when that all came to the end and financially I recognize that Pittsburgh is not a city for a yoga teacher to be able to survive on unless you want to, also I wasn't also not 25 at the time. So maybe perhaps if you're a fitness instructor that's 25 and can teach, multiple classes a day over and over and over and over again and for days and days and do that and get popular enough that you could actually sustain. You still wouldn't make a great living, but you could survive maybe.
Do you like teaching privates too, or have you made that
I've
part of your
been
business?
I've done that. I find that a lot of people do privates really are looking for therapy. And
Me.
I
It me.
Oh my god, are you calling yourself out? You're that goofy guy that does the weird practice in the room and
No,
does privates for therapy?
I've never done a private other than with Brian. That was the first time I've ever done it. But no, I'm saying like if I were to do that, it would 100% be because I probably
They
really
come in
truly need
there and then
therapy.
they'll like want to do some things yoga wise, but then they just get into a conversation with you. And I'm like, I think initially I found that fine. And I also was like, okay, this is good. But now I feel like, I'm just too busy for like that. Like, and I don't want to say that and sounding like in a bad way, like I'm too busy to talk to people, but it's like, I don't feel like I don't want to give people advice and I don't necessarily want to know everything about everybody. And I don't want to build relationships in a strange way like that. So I felt myself feeling
That's
like that
cool.
I'm not the right person for that. I do know some of the yoga teachers that teach for me at my studio, and then others that I know colleague wise that do very well with that and really like it and are good at it. And they are the kinds of teachers that do well with that. I'm good at retreats. I like retreats.
Oh, cool.
That's a good thing for me. I like retreats, I like trainings, and I like workshops, and I like to teach in public.
Where are your favorite places to take people?
Well, I've done at this point 9 retreats to
Oof.
Tulum.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm.
What properties are you
I
working
go
with?
to Amansala,
Okay. Is North Beach or
in
South?
Tulum.
Yeah.
It's in Tulum Beach. So
South.
literally the tip of the world,
Yeah.
like where you
Yeah.
go down and you're at the end.
Yeah. I rode
Yeah.
my bike every day. I loved
I ride
Tulum.
my bike in Tulum. Remember we were talking
Yeah.
about bikes?
Yeah.
Tulum bike riding
Every
is
day.
every day. Although I will say the
It's my
roads
favorite.
there are no bueno.
Did you I
They're
like that.
bumpy.
I like that beach ride. Did you go to Playa Papaya? Did you party at all, or are you just
Oh
talking about?
yeah, we do. We do. I mean, this is like I always say, a yoga retreat with me is not the same as we don't make an emphasis. There's no emphasis on health and wellness in the sense of like this is
Good.
a yoga treat that is like I frame it more mine are like take your yoga studio on your vacation because
Yeah.
that's what we're about. So if you're wanting to go to do like Vipassana or like be like I always this is what I do that I find fun and people can delve into it as much or as least as they want. I always come up with a theme
Cool.
and something that is a general intention from start of retreat to end that I'll furl through my classes. And we might journal on and we might have like little activities that we do that can like further along that theme. And if that's something that you are like vibing with, because there's certain people on the retreat that are like, okay, they grab onto that and they love that. And others are like, yeah, I like opening night and closing night. They're like, yeah, but otherwise they're like, nah, they just don't. So you got to let people like feel what's right. And I bring that as an offering because I'm, creating a retreat. So I bring that as an offering, but I'm not pushing it on anyone. I bring that for whoever's receptive to it. And I also, even whoever's receptive to it, I don't push that a lot. Like we spend some free time. We have like things we do together, we have things we do apart. Also, everything is optional. No,
Nice.
you're paying for what you're paying for, but everything is optional. No, I'm here, I'm going to teach the class, I'm going to do the things. But if you don't want to come, there's no like you go do you.
Do you do it with a?
Attend as you want. As you in other words, just like a yoga studio is we have a schedule,
Yeah.
right? And you're at home here and you're doing, oh, I'm checking in a class tonight,
Yeah.
or not, or whatever.
Do you do it with other teachers? Is there a business that you work with that
So I've
plans
done it
it? Or?
both ways. The trip that I'm taking in, and literally, it's literally like 7 weeks away. I'm going to
So,
Italy, and I'm taking 32 people,
wow. Where are you going?
and I'm going to the the Umbrian Hills.
Okay. I don't know Italy well.
So it's the right side, the right
East.
side in the countryside, uh, uh, east of Tuscany towards the coast, and there'll be some coastal towns there
Is
too.
it the Alps?
No, not the Alps. It's in Italy.
There's Italian Alps.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's the Alps. I don't know. I thought it was the Umbrian Hills. I thought you're like the Alps, like Switzerland.
There's actually that's one of the reasons that I think Rome and some of the other like civilizations in Italy did so well is because there's mountains, the Alps
Oh, right.
protect the north of Italy from the Gauls and all the other warring tribes. So they couldn't
Oh,
come down and attack Caesar because there's these huge mountain ranges, and that's the story with Hannibal. So Hannibal was a general from Persia, I
right.
believe, and he took an army of elephants over the Alps into Italy and attacked.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
Italy is fascinating and
yeah, yeah. I
gorgeous.
can't wait to go. I just want to eat everything.
Oh
I want to
my
eat all the food. Do you
God.
have do you have like a
This will be my
diet?
second time in Italy.
What do you eat?
What do I eat?
Yeah,
Everything.
no
Everything.
limits.
No limits. I got no
Seafood,
allergies.
pork,
Seafood, pork,
uh, beef, and
beef,
chickens. And
chicken. Give
you
it to
name
me.
it.
You give it to me.
Hot dogs,
Hot dogs,
cereal,
cereal,
grain,
grain,
breads,
breads,
juice.
juice.
You'll do it all.
Mm-hmm. There's not. I'm and try to think of something I won't eat. You can't.
Um, Liver and
I mean, if they do it
pâtés. Yeah,
right. No, I love
yeah,
pate.
it's
Oh
good
my
stuff.
God. In fact, don't even say that because I'll be driving home to.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, right now I'm so upset that Poulet Bleu is closed on Lawrenceville
Oh, I don't know that one.
because they have the best pate.
Nice.
And I came to pate way late in the game because my best friend was living in London And like we went to like some restaurants and she ordered it and I was like, ew. And then like she like literally this is like in my like 40s.
Yeah.
And she was like, just
Just eat
fucking
it.
eat
Yeah,
this
yeah,
on
yeah,
this
it's the
cracker.
best thing.
It's the
The
best thing.
fat
And I
is
was
what's so
like,
amazing
I
about it.
don't want to eat that on that cracker. And she's like, are you kidding
Put it
me
in your
that
mouth.
you've never eaten this? And I'm like, no. I'm like, it always seemed disgusting to me. And she was like, who cares? Just eat it.
Yeah.
And so I ate the one cracker and I was like, I was
It's
like,
amazing.
how sad for myself that I didn't do
All
this
those years.
before. And so then she went to like some equivalent of like Whole Foods-ish type of place in London by her flat and got us like our own little one and like we sat there and she had like a coffee table that was really low where you could like put stuffy cushions on the floor.
Nice.
Stuffy cushions on the floor, low coffee table. Hunk of each of us had our own pate and a whole box of crackers.
Yeah.
And like wine, rosé.
Yeah.
Rock Angel. And you just like, and we just were like,
Yep.
like that, just like for a long time. And I'm going to tell you something. I could eat a lot of that. I could probably finish a third of a box of crackers.
I like crostinis with pate.
Stop.
You know, I need a crostini. I need
A crostini is amazing.
Yeah. The toast.
I like a crostini. I like a crostini. I feel that a lot of restaurants, when you go and you order that, they don't give you enough crostini or cracker or whatever, and you have this thing of pate, and then they're that. So then, as soon as I'm done with that, I just start.
Order another one.
I will. They'll come by the table, and I'll be like, "Can I have a little bit more?"
Bring it back.
It's just like you're not giving somebody enough pita or something. Like it's like that doesn't work. The ration of pita or crostini to the dip or the pate is
accurate. I love tuna tartare. That's one of
I
my
do like that too.
To get down on.
I eat sushi.
Yep.
Love it.
No limits.
Anything.
Oysters.
Oysters. Love oysters. I'm all down. In fact, that's probably one of my favorites.
It's the best. There's a good spot in Lawrenceville for that. The Merchant,
yes, I just was there.
I
just was there. Merchant oyster.
Yeah,
yep, they're
legit.
great. Also, their spinach choke and artichoke dip is amazing, but you get it with crab. Ooh. So they put the crab in it. It also is yellow because it has, I think it might have a turmeric in it or something. Nice. A tumor, turmeric.
I do not have a tumor.
It might have that in it.
It's not a tumor.
Do you like wine?
Yeah. I don't know much about it, but I do like it.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
I know one thing. If I'm going to get a rosé, I like one from Provence. So I like it to be French. It just is better. I like a certain color that's like a lighter, pale, neutral nectar color versus like a pink or orange or that kind of color. He's going to break in. He's going to learn how to be a klepto.
He's on his way up. Come meet Rigel. Is rosé strawberry champagne? Is that the same thing?
No, it's not the same as that.
Where's the Duckbill River Monster?
It's about to be built so big.
Oh my god. Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah, I built it so high and I was about to fall.
But you built that?
Yeah, this is city.
Oh, that's cool. You have your own little world.
It's like a Sim City kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you do Legos. Is that Legos?
Yeah.
Yeah. My son was a Star Wars Legos junkie. Like, still to this day. In fact, 24-year-old, sorry, Zach, I'm outing you on this podcast. But, like, literally, him and his buddy the one day, like, got lunch and went over to Target for something for their apartment. And he's literally, like, over in the toy section, bought himself a little fucking Star Wars Legos.
At 24?
Like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was like, no, I'm just... And I, like, was like, are you... He's like, I mean, I'm not playing with it.
The store is amazing. The Lego store at the mall, it's really cool.
I mean, Zach, I'm going to tell you something. Do you know how this is how Legos and yoga are going to tie together? In order for me to do teacher training, I had to pay for it myself. My husband was like, nah, because at the time he was like, we don't have the money for that or something. And that's totally fine. And so my kids had a lot of Legos that they weren't using anymore, some really cool sets, and they were older. And they had saved the instructions and the boxes and all the things.
Whoa. And
I eBayed them for an entire thousands of dollars teacher training.
Wow, they were really into Legos.
Oh yeah, they were. Like my son had like sets that were like what is it? What is that thing called that the black round thing that's the Empire ship.
The Millennium Falcon, the Death Star.
The Death Star.
Yeah,
He had
yeah.
the Death Star and he had the Millennium Falcon and he had
Wow.
the Lego versions of those are like really there's certain editions of those that are like
That are
seriously people
valuable.
they're like thousands of pieces and like put
Yeah,
together they
yeah.
look so cool and like also the little figurines that they had certain ones that like Boba Fett and stuff that were like really cool and he was really into that. He retained some of those ones. He still to this day has retained some of those for his like personal
Is he
collection.
mad at you for selling them? For selling the other ones?
No, the ones that he let me,
He
he
let you sell them.
100% like that was a thing where I was like going through the kids' stuff, like looking at their like my stepdaughter had these American Girl dolls that were like all
Yeah,
the
yeah.
rage back then, and like she also and some Barbies that were also the rage, and we had kept them pretty good as toys. I mean, that's the thing, and they ended up serving me in such a way that like
That's cool.
it came back around. So all those times that I spoiled them and shouldn't have bought them those things, like in other words, you get into Target and you're like, we're in here for dish soap and this. And then your kid has like 3 toys in the thing. No, don't learn anything from this. Don't listen to Suzanne. But like that's what happens.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, oh my God, and I'm spoiling them. And then like there would be also the arguments by the cart, and I'd be like, no, and they'd be like, yes, and then we're never getting out of there, and they're screaming. And just they win. They win, they win, they win. Guess what? Guess who won in the end?
Yeah, yeah. You got your teacher training, and then you launched this amazing business, and you're helping people, and you're like, you have a path. You have a life path that you've
I
created
feel
from
I
it.
do have a life path. I feel like I do. I think I still got one chapter left in me.
Is the writing
Mhm.
really?
Yeah.
You're gonna do a book?
So it's formulating to be a fiction novel, I think.
Oh, cool.
And I think it's going to be something where some of these hilarious things that have happened to me, both dramatic and both like no one would ever like the kind of thing when you're telling your therapist and they're like literally like this is the best session I've ever had.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that kind of thing. They're going in the book, but like in ways that are like going to be fictionalized, I
That's
think.
awesome. Very
Like I
cool.
might even take some like license with them, but there'll be things that are like based on some experiences that I've had and also like I mean, maybe I'll set it in a place that I want to live or have, visited or something.
Maybe
Maybe
Italy.
it could be set in Italy. When I went to Italy last year, I read a book from a girl who actually had wrote the book about the hotel that she stayed in Italy, which I stayed in that same hotel. She had gone there after her mother died. They were supposed to take a trip together as a mother and a daughter. Late, like she had a small children. And they were going to do a mother daughter like week in Italy together for her mother's like maybe 70th, 80th birthday, something like a 70th, I think 70th.
Yeah.
60th? I don't know. It's some big trip like that. And they ended up, the mother died of cancer pretty quickly. Like it got diagnosed and died pretty quickly. And she went and took the trip on her own. She was not going to take it. And that it was just like, well, I'm just going to go. And she went and she explored it for herself. And she actually moves herself through her grief of her mother. It was a really lovely story because she really puts in the characteristics of the hotel, which was run by a
Mm.
family. It's not a chain. These people had like their grandparents had this villa and this one had this villa and that one and that one, and then eventually they just connected the villas, and they were also talented with carpentry and like building and like all these things that they eventually just like created it so like there's all these different rooms that you stay in, and like you feel like you're in your own like a private Italian villas with like balconies and right over the Amalfi Coast.
Yeah.
And then like they treat you like gold. It's just wonderful. And they like, you come and go and the concierge is so sweet to you. And they have this like cool little VW bug um car that they take you everywhere in that's like cream colored, and you like drive the little Amalfi Coast in it. And she wrote a book. She made it a fiction story, like kind of using some of her own experiences with her mother's death and then her experiences in Italy. And then she turns it into a fiction story with fiction characters and some things happen.
And that's what the White Lotus is based on?
Actually, probably.
Well,
Shit.
that's what makes
It's
me
called
think
One
about
Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, and it's a really
Cool.
good book. And I highly recommend it to any. In fact, a friend of mine is going to Italy, and I was like, get this book. And then another friend of mine's mom is going to Italy, and I was like, get your mom this book for Mother's Day to go to Italy. How do you feel about that, like with kids and online, and
Yeah, yeah.
what's gonna happen with him with that, with you?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. I think there's a lot of parents who cross the line in terms of like the YouTube accounts that are just using their child to generate revenue, there's definitely a line that can be crossed related to like sexualizing children. I think that posting a family photo is okay if you're not a celebrity. Nobody's coming after me. Like nobody cares who I am.
That this is going to be something that my kid is going to be like, thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe, did daddy want one too? I think dad wanted,
It's all right.
dad
No
wanted
biggie.
one. No? He's like, you don't get any. I'll give it to her.
Yeah. So the point is that
Social
you're
media,
worried for the kids that grew up on social media?
it's a lot of bullying.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you can imagine. I get bullied. Like, people get bullied all the time.
Is that what you were talking about when you were talking about like the downsides of being a yoga teacher?
Absolutely.
What do you mean by like
Oh my
bullying?
God, hatefulness. I get hateful things said to me.
Online?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Terrible things. People like, all you care about is money. You're a Ford factory of pumping out yoga teachers. I only allow 12 people in my teacher trainings at a time. And also, I worked very hard on that curriculum. And I'm like, it's not a Ford factory. I have a 12-person limit to each session. Do not go past that. And I work really hard to like share this knowledge. It's a really comprehensive training.
Yeah.
But you have people, it's mostly what happens in the yoga industry is that the teacher trainings have created a culture of like, I don't know, like you can't hire everybody. And also, you're working with a lot of young people. Let's say, a teacher doesn't like, I don't know, like the way that you run your business, a contract, doesn't want to,
Are there
so,
non-competes or how does it work? Bring it over here, dude.
I think every studio is different. I have like a boundary where I feel like is good for me in my business, and I put it out there and I'm pretty honest about it. And I think like, I don't hold back in saying that like it's too much conflict, because there's a lot of competition. And so if it's in a certain range
Yeah,
around my
yeah. So you give them
business,
like 2-3 miles or something or 5
I give
miles?
them 6.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not like a firm. Like I'm like 6. Like within 6, I want to know what the situation is.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to me about it. You're not
Yeah,
going to
so I've
come
had
after
people that do
people.
like 4, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I just need to know, like, and then if it's like a conflict directly, like it's too close or I feel uncomfortable with the situation, then I'm like, nah. But it just is like, I think each business owner has the right to decide what's going to work to serve their memberships and their business. We're not in business together, these other places. So it's like, and then yoga teachers become very connected to your community as well as like your policies and what you're doing. And think about it. I mean, in some ways they are competitive businesses. So it's like, then, you fear that maybe too much will crisscross and like people could, because you can't trust everybody. And so that's a problem. I think for me, I've encountered situations where there's teachers that either didn't get what they wanted from me or didn't like the way that I run my business or what I do, so that they might feel that they need to like lash out at me. I think that also the industry has a lot of people that are very uh have a lot of opinions about yoga and things like that, and then they really can go down a path of like um in the name of yoga being very like actually pretty nasty. In the name of yoga, I've had people say things to me that are like so nasty, like that I'm like, and this is because you're such a good yoga
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
You're
This
saying,
holier than thou thing.
yeah, like just stuff.
Sanctimonious.
Yeah, very
Sanctimonious. Yeah.
sanctimonious. Like one of the things about being a studio owner, I think, is that I think most studio owners come to this realization is that it is pretty much a revolving door, except for yourself. Because anybody that's coming to teach it. I mean, I have a couple long-term teachers that like literally they're very settled in their life and their rhythms, and they love what they do, and they work with me well, and I work with them well, and they've made their situation is exactly what they like. They like their class time. They like their students. They're comfortable with they have a vibe, and they've been there a while. But I have a lot of ones that come and go. Like
Yeah,
that
college students, CMU, Pitt, like,
grad students in particular, college students. Also, you lose a lot of women to I'm getting married and having a baby at this point.
yeah.
You lose people to I'm moving to Costa Rica and doing this thing with sea turtles. I mean, you lose a lot of people.
Like, what could be a better job for being a mom than being a yoga teacher?
Right. So, well,
Like,
moms, you can get a
like,
mom yoga teacher, but not as much in the city. In the South Hills or the North Hills and things like that, you can find that. I mean, I really do think that people my age teaching yoga the way that I teach it are a dying breed.
what do you mean by that? Like, what's the way that you teach it?
Like, I mean, I think other people are teaching it the way I'm teaching it, but not at my age. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm getting old for what I teach. I think the way that I teach.
Which is what?
Pretty high energy vinyasa that's very creative and rooted in like really modern music and like, you know, a lot of activity, like exercise stylish vinyasa, you know. That's what I like to do. That's what I always like to do. I mean, it was my favorite type, but I think like to a certain extent, if you look around at the yoga industry right now and the people that are teaching, the oldest ones in it in Pittsburgh, I would say, are all yoga studio owners that have a longevity of it, that have a clientele and that have been doing it a while, so they're inherently like invested into it for themselves. But you don't see, you know, I'm not seeing a lot of people my age coming down the pike to teach yoga anymore, doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, hence the revolving door.
Hence the revolving door. And I do think that, like, you know, this idea that if you don't somehow or another have all these people that have been teaching for you for 10 years, what, these people have to teach for me in perpetuity? Like, they come, they go. Not all of the reasons that they go are bad reasons. Like, most of them are not. You have the bad apple here and there. You have the teacher that throws a fit about something. It happens. And students. So that's
Yeah.
the teacher side of it. But then you have the student side of it.
Hang on.
You have anything from they come in and I literally saw on ClassPass the other day.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
But that's not what.
He's going in there.
The
I saw on ClassPass the other day that a teacher, so one of my teachers was upset because she got a student said a nasty thing about her on ClassPass. And she's like 28 years old, and she teaches like about 3 or 4 classes a week for me. And what's hysterical was in the ClassPass reviews, there's a review that says this. It's the same class. I love this teacher. So I'm not saying any names or anything. I love this teacher so much. She was amazing. She's kind. She's wonderful. The energy in the room was amazing. The instructions were lovely. She offered you many modifications. And all in all, I found this to be an amazing experience. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
nice.
Something like that.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And the next review from the same exact class said, this teacher was absolutely terrible and needs to be more respectful.
Huh.
Let's wrap it up.
There's a workshop on Saturday. There's still some retreat slots, or they're all full.
I think with retreats, so the one I'm doing in Italy, there's a company that I'm working with because I'm not familiar enough with Italy. I can do the Tulum one. I do it myself, but this one I have to hire a company.
Okay.
Like they do it with me. Or actually they hire me, excuse me. It's an opposite way around. They hire you to do it. They will, I think, basically, I think they've sold out of most of the rooms, but like if somebody was
Desperate.
like somebody really wanted to go and that it lined up with the right room that they wanted, like this is all we have left basically.
Got it.
Kind of thing. So we really did do what we needed to do. Now we have only a certain kind of room left, and if that's not what you wanted, I don't know if it's probably the best room either, but it's probably like because it's the last rooms left.
Cool.
But like that's what's there. So we have that going, and then I have my workshop this Saturday.
Amazing. What time is it?
11 a.m. And
Not sold out yet?
no, it's sold out.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
know
So
it has a wait list.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so do all your classes. That's why that's why I don't go.
Oh my God, you got so mad that one time. I could
I,
tell you were like, what the fuck? And I'm like, these people are like, I just
they're
had
waiting in the
somebody like
eaves to take class with you.
I had somebody ream me for like literally I have a review that says, um, this person's class, they're too busy. And I was like real sensitized by that, so I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, oh, I have
yeah,
to make sure I don't overdo it because
yeah.
people get so mad. And then it's like, there's nothing more that like into this is to who I am as a person to be like, no, you can't practice. I'm like, ugh. And it's just the worst thing, but it's like people get so sensitive and then they like have to say all this crap about your class and you're like, you're just trying to spread, the more the merrier kind of vibe. But I mean, I've been doing this a while. So it's
Yeah.
like, people, once you've developed that rapport with people, they like that. I don't think that makes, I think it's because I've shown up. I think it's because I'm there. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. It's like, who's the one coming again and again and again? I'm not the revolving door. I'm there. I show up. I've been there a while. People have gotten to practice with me for a while.
Yeah. It's a really good product and people know what to expect.
Yeah, and they know what to expect, and
Yeah.
then it builds, and over time you develop relationships, and you become a part of somebody's routine. Like that's what we call it in the industry is being a destination teacher, which is somebody that like people actually put into their phone or like something that like yeah that's Suze's class or whatever that they've put that into their life because they value spending that time with you and the product that you've created for them. And I don't mean to like make it like so sterile like saying this product, but it is a skill set and it's a craft that you do, and it's also that what it comes down to with yoga is people are showing up at your class because they like the version of yoga that you offer. That's all it is. It doesn't make you better, it doesn't make you the best, it doesn't make you wrong or right.
What I wanted to say is I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks
I
for coming on.
literally was halfway kidding when you put. I was just looking at your stories and you're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, who wants to be on my podcast?" And I was like, "Me." And then I was like, literally like, "Oh, I thought you were kind of kidding and whatever."
No,
I
no.
was just being like, sometimes I'll just like, when people throw out questions and like DMs and stuff,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's. I just did.
Well,
I don't know. It was kind of like actually though, I felt really drawn to do that. Once you were like, "Yeah, actually, do you want to?" I was like, "I've never done a podcast. I've been asked numerous times,
yeah.
and I never did."
I think it's going to come out really nice. And
Oh, cool.
I'm going to sign the list. I'm going to sign up for your class. I'm coming back. I'm going to do it. I hate signing the list, but I'll do it
You
for
were
you.
coming, you came during a really busy time too. Like
Yeah.
my there's certain times a year when we tell people, dude, you got to sign up
Yeah, yeah.
because everybody is in that mood. And then there's times when everybody's not. It's like going to like a date night on a Tuesday. It's great. You can get a table. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things.
But yeah.
You have to think about the collective. But yeah, I don't teach on Saturday mornings in East Liberty anymore.
Oh, really?
I teach in the strip district on Sundays.
Sunday morning?
Sunday morning. That's my class.
Sunday
Well,
morning
I
church.
don't like to call it church because I'm like not religious, but
I was going to ask about that. Does the Judaism like factor into your life anymore?
no, if anything that I identify with it would be to be Jewish, but I just didn't I don't feel like I feel like that's incorrect for me to like actually perpetuate myself as this like very spiritually Jewish person because
Yeah.
I'm not. I do believe in the traditions. I celebrate them with my family, but like I don't like I actually did have a bat mitzvah and I do
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
do I can speak and read Hebrew. But I don't think that makes me necessarily like I don't observe it.
You don't study the Kabbalah. Are you a Hindu? Are you into the Hinduism?
No, I mean I
You know, have
was. I
altars
got
in
real
front
into
of
the
them?
sutras real quick there for a minute. Like
Yeah.
I mean I think a lot of yogis do. Like I once I started to learn and understand the Hindu mythology and the Buddhism behind it. For me it was I like to learn. I'm like that person that reads books, and then whenever I'm reading I'm really into and really into like learning about it, and I'll deep dive a little bit. And I got really into that, but what I really found was that I liked the idea that everything I was reading made sense to me and was really like created an overall idea of how I can be more peaceful with myself. And so that's where I go with it. I mean, I don't I had my dad's family was all Catholic, very devout Roman Catholic.
Hmm.
And every person that I've ever been married to was Christian.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if your man is a member of the tribe.
No, he's Catholic.
Keeps coming back to dad, right? In some ways.
Total daddy issues, yeah. But I think for sure, like, it just, for whatever reason, I think that me personally, Suzanne, I think I'm attractive to Irish Catholic men for whatever reason, and vice versa. There's like a distinct Jew girl meets Irish Catholic man vibe that goes on between me and whatever I do, because it seems repeated in my life numerous times. And they all probably know. Like, I grew up in an area with a lot of Irish Catholic people. The South Hills of Pittsburgh do have like
Yeah.
out, yeah, there's a lot of Irish Catholic people, and so the Irish Catholics, it's an interesting group. Lots of children,
Mm-hmm.
lots of children. Those families have lots of children.
That was the other story we almost got into about how I got switched schools, and I ended up in a Catholic school for junior and senior year of high school. So I didn't know anyone. They'd been in school together
Oh,
since
right, we were talking
kindergarten.
about moving, and
Yeah,
that
they'd
happened
been
to
in
you.
school together since kindergarten, all in the same classes, all in the same sports.
Do you think
And
it
I
made you
showed up.
stronger? And you were a
Yeah,
Jew.
yeah, Jewish, and not only that, the craziest part was that the principal, whose name's Meyerly, I don't remember, Joseph Meyerly, ended up dying in a car crash the second week of my junior year, my first 2 weeks there. And so not only was I Jewish, not only did I not know anyone, but now they had all centered around this tragedy and they were able to experience it together. And I
You didn't
didn't
even know, yeah.
He shook my hand and told me I could come to school, even though I'd failed out of every other school in Ann Arbor. Wow.
So you're a Jew like me in some ways, who was around, even though I'm assuming both your parents are Jewish.
Yeah, my mom's a convert.
Okay.
She's like, what is she? Baptist?
Oh, she converted.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what my first husband converted. So my son is Jewish because he
He would
converted.
have been anyway because of you.
Right, exactly. But like, for sure.
For
But
the,
like, his dad,
Jewish
yeah,
thing.
but he was a convert. But like, that's, so you know what it feels like then to be the only Jew in the areas that were there not. Okay, that's
big time. I mean, we grew up north of Ann Arbor, so we were out in the country, and like when we would have our Hanukkah menorah up in the window, and everybody else had the Christmas lights. Like
I'm scarred from that.
We
Like,
didn't have
literally,
any
my
Christmas
mom, like,
lights,
I'm
so they
like,
would
I
throw
harbor.
toilet paper on our trees and
I
eggs.
cried.
We
I
got
had
egged
a
every year.
huge fight with my mom, like hysterical, like crying, like your throat sore, eyes puffing out. Why can't we have lights? Do you know what you're doing to me? Like,
Yeah.
that vibe.
Yeah, we do it. We do it. I do it all. I love it. I love Christmas.
Do you know what I do?
I do
Now
hot-
I do Christmas
do,
everything, because you know why? I
Christmas
just
lights,
want to.
Christmas
I just
tree.
don't think it's. I want to participate in it in a secular way. Like,
100%.
I really truly think it's like, let's get into the season.
It's very American.
Let me do some gingerbread. Let me get some gingerbread shit going on. Let me.
It's American
You know,
culture.
like, I'm like,
Like-
this is. I want to smell the pines. I like a little. I go to
100%.
Target, get an ornament every year for the tree. We got a nice little tree. It's a
Same
fun
here.
thing.
Yep.
Do a little thing, put a little garland up, and then when
We love it.
January rolls around, we're done.
We love it.
But I love it too, and I'm like,
It's a
I
great
want to do it, and I
tradition.
don't want to be like cast out of it, and I also don't want to be judged for it, and I also don't really want to celebrate it religiously in any way.
One year I was dating a Christian girl, a Catholic girl from New Jersey. I went and visited her family first in the East Coast in Staten Island, and then later on the West Coast. Her grandma was in Palm Desert, just east of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And they had this ham that was cooking in the oven for all day long, 12 hours, and we were just smelling
I
this
can
thing.
smell it already.
It was so rich, just incredible with the pineapple and just the amazing odor. We sit down to eat, and her mom looks at me as we're about to kind of bless the food and take our first bites, and she goes, you know, the tradition of eating ham on Easter comes because they used to force the converted Jews to eat pig to prove that they were no longer Jews.
Ew. She said that to you?
110%. 110%.
That
Yeah.
reminds me of the
It
one
was
time that my
insane.
mom had on
fucking
Christmas.
insane.
Like, do you know that the Jews killed Christ? Like, one of my dad's like aunts or some shit said to my mom, and my mom was literally like, "I'm so sorry." Like, She was literally like, but like, I'm like, oh my God, people, just stop. Get over it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. All right.
All this anti-Semitic shit, though. Oof.
Yeah, that's a
That's
wild
for
time.
another podcast. You
Yeah,
got
yeah.
to do one on that, to be
Yeah, I'd like to.
honest.
I'm
I
trying to
mean,
think who I'd bring on. Maybe my French cousin. I was talking about how I have those French cousins.
yeah.
One of them's named Jacques. Is really we're actually pretty close, and not only has he lived in Paris as a Jew for most of his life, which is one of the worst places on earth for anti-Semitism, as
Is
far as
it?
I can tell. Yeah, outside the Middle East, it's
Oh
not
my
good.
God.
But now he's in Israel, so now he's living in Tel
Well,
Aviv
he
as
would
like a
probably have a
programmer.
lot of interesting things to say about that then.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Pittsburghers do too. I wasn't here for Tree of Life, but you
That
were.
was where Tree of Life was where my nephew was bar mitzvahed. My grandfather was bar mitzvahed. My whole family spent Passover every year. During the people in that congregation were people that knew, I mean, numerous members of my family, including my brother-in-law. Um, in fact, the day of that shooting was actually supposed to be my niece's bat mitzvah. But what had happened was she got behind on her Torah portion and they had postponed it.
Jesus.
So we all look at that as like, wow, kind of vibe. That's the day that it was supposed to be. So, and it would have been there.
I think that whole story is just, it's like mind-numbingly sad and
I
sick.
think, are we in
The
Pittsburgh? I think I saw this on the news the other day because it was like the anniversary. I think that is the deadliest anti Semitic attack that's ever occurred in America,
Oh yeah, yeah.
the Tree of Life.
Yeah, and the thing was, it wasn't really about Jews at all, and that's what's wild about it. It was about anti-immigrant sentiment, right? I mean, the
Hmm.
guy hated Jews, obviously, but it was like he targeted that community because they were welcoming immigrants in and
Yeah.
trying to like bring them in to. And it was just one of the three congregations.
Yeah.
There's three congregations
The
that
refugees
lost
and stuff. Yeah.
that lost members, and it was just the one that was like involved with this activity. Just wild, just a wild world. But there's a lot of good out there, and you see it. I think that the fact that there's still a Jewish community here, and like, that still gets up every Saturday and walks to their synagogue is, that's resilience. See, that's
Well, Jews are resilient.
yeah, that's gonna take more than that to stop us. Let's get a picture together.
Okay.
This was fun.
It was so fun.
All right.
Should I unhook my
Yep.
headphones?
Yep.
Forgot I
so,
was wearing them after a while.
yeah.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, right.